fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got really outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
This is very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God!
God, what?
This is your chance to get behind the wheel. The opportunity to race just like the pros. From the grassroots levels, where we all got our start, to the most popular race cars on the planet. From the fairgrounds of Nashville to the high banks of Daytona, to tracks that will never be forgotten. Realistic driving, intense competition, all from the comfort of your own home. This is the ultimate motorsports simulation. This is iRacing.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV. It's time once again for the Majors Series International Region. We've got a great weekend of racing coming up. Not only is it the Majors 24 over the course of the weekend, but we've got the 2.4 here in the French countryside. Going to be racing for 144 minutes around this fantastic, historic circuit just outside Le Mans in France. To bring it to you all live here on SimSpeed TV is myself, Reese Gardner, and Dan Yeaman is alongside me in the commentary box. Dan, I always love a race at Le Mans. It's a fantastic circuit, this one. Some might say it's a little boring. I know a few of my fellow sim racers have expressed such an opinion, but I disagree. It's an incredibly fast circuit, a lot of long straights, a few chicanes, providing some good overtaking opportunities, but really the Porsche curves are the most challenging part of the circuit. Definitely a place where the drivers can be challenged.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the introduction there, Reese, and welcome from myself personally to all of us joining us on broadcast wherever you are around the world and online here now or afterwards with an archive on YouTube. So having a look here at the track map once again real quick. Obviously, Le Mans, the circuit here at Le Mans, I should say, very much a popular and well-known configuration. You can see there the newly named first chicane on the Mulsanne straightaway Daytona. Thanks to that partnership and recognition of sort of cooperation, I guess, between the ACO and IMSA in America. But nevertheless, yeah, a very interesting track because so much of it is reliant on that straightaway speed. Down the Mulsanne, straight, out of Mulsanne up to Indianapolis, even out of Arnage up to the Porsche curves. That's a decent straightaway there that you've got to try and get the speed out of, but then you have to obviously counterbalance that with the Porsche curves there at the end of the lap. Also, the S's there and Tetra Rouge in the first sector of the track as well. So very much a game of compromises and balance here at this venue and making sure you get the most out of the car in a straight line and then know how to get the most out of it through the turns, I dare say, here, Reese.
Indeed. Well, the drivers will have already gone through their qualifying over the course of the week, and we're coming up to the final few minutes of the practice session here. Before we get into our racing action, let's check out how things stand here. Sam Harper still leading the championship, and Harper coming home with the win in the Indy 500 last round, certainly bolstering his championship lead. Robert Northway still sitting in second. Thomas Hinz, though, falling to third place in the championship. It's looking like some very close points positions here in the top 10, particularly between Shane Bowen and Dwayne Burns, the teammates at Kinetic Avatar Racing. Only a single point separating them, and Daniel Stevens, part of Middle Finger Racing, is chomping at their heels.
He is indeed. It's great to see that we've got plenty of drivers in with a chance here after just, well, we are only 6 rounds into the Major Series for 2022, but small gaps here and there mean that plenty of drivers are going to have a chance to have a crack at things here. So that was your pro class here for the Major Series, and here's what things look like in the Sportsman division. It's Julian Mookie currently leading that one there. Only 14 points ahead, though, of second place for Dave Trevethan. Pardon me. And then, well, look at that. Only 4 points back to P3 with the hands of Joshua Robertson. And you can see here, we saw a 1 point gap, Reese, between some of our Pro Class drivers. Phil Otto and James Catchpole here in Sportsman are currently locked at 765 points apiece.
That they are. Sportsman is looking incredibly competitive. There's potential for very big changes there in those championship standings in the Sportsman Drivers' Championship. Also, in terms of the teams, things are looking very good for various teams in those standings. Of course, we support a charity every single round here at the Majors Series. This round, it is Fight Colorectal Cancer, a cause that is very close to the heart of our friend here at SimSpeed TV, Cameron Dance, who unfortunately lost his father to colorectal cancer. Fight CRC is the leading patient advocacy group in colorectal cancer. They have no plans of slowing down or stopping until they reach their goal, which is a cure. Go to fightcolorectalcancer.org to lend your support.
And the great thing actually, just seeing in the background a shot, Reese, as we're coming to the closing minutes of practice, is the Rolex clock there. Actually, to be honest, I never realised it was a thing here at this virtual version of Le Mans there. You can see the right side of the Rolex clock is actually showing you the remaining time in the practice session. So just under 4.5 minutes to go here as the drivers are currently, I think, have just wrapped up their pre-race briefing from the Majors admin team, because we've got a couple of drivers heading back out on circuit for maybe one last tour around the circuit. So, not too long now before we can get this race underway. And, well, it should be a good one here. The LMP1 class, both with a mix of the Porsche 919 along with the Audi R18 here tonight for that class. And then our full lineup of GTE class vehicles, the Ford, Porsche RSR, BMW M8, Ferrari 488, and there is a couple of Corvette C8Rs here tonight as well. So, I believe it is every car possible represented in some form or fashion here tonight, as we see some of our LMP1 machines with Daniel Stevens representing Middle Finger Racing, and in the Pro Class here, making his way down the Mulsanne straight to the Daytona chicane for probably what will be his final time here in pre-race practice.
Indeed, he's followed closely by Kinetic Avatar Racing's J.M. Thomas, formerly a part of Middle Finger Racing. And Josh Thomas here was Sportsman Champion last year, so he's got an awful lot to work up to there. He's driving the Audi R18, which is an interesting decision there. There's big differences between the Porsche 919 and the Audi R18. Dwayne Burns here currently in 5th place in the GTE standings at the end of practice, looking competitive in his Porsche 911 RSR, powered by a naturally aspirated flat six engine. And Blake Neck is the one currently at the top of the GTE standings for TriStar Racing. And tell you what, Neck is definitely a big fan of that Ford GT. Josh Robertson, meanwhile, 8th place at the moment, and currently 3rd of the sportsman drivers in the GTE class, 8th overall in that particular class. Jonathan Bain looking to set a couple of times here at the end of the session. A late joiner to the practice session. Hasn't been able to get a time in just yet, and I don't think he'll get a chance to. But I tell you what, that livery on the Corvette is quite dazzling.
It's a striking paint job there. Someone might want a zebra call and ask for its paint job back. Perhaps, although certainly a bit more multicolored than black and white stripes you might expect on a zebra there. So I'd be curious to see. Obviously, we've got ourselves basically 4 races to cover within the one race, Reese, as I'm sure we can sort of understand. You've obviously got the class races tonight here between LMP1 and GTE, but then, of course, as we covered there with the championship standings, we've got the Majors Pro Class and the Majors Sportsman Class. So a lot of back and forth that we're going to have to try to keep an eye on in this race. And thanks to Jay Kennedy on production, we'll be able to demonstrate that with a little bit more ease. So here's how your timing tower and overlays will look like tonight here on SimSpeed. The green and gold colours that cover up the drivers' names, that indicates their Majors class, green for the Pro Division and gold for our Sportsman Division entrance. And then the colours in behind their car numbers there indicate their iRacing vehicle class, red for the LMP1 drivers and blue for our GTE class drivers here tonight.
Yeah, very nice overlays there. It'll be very easy to tell who is what and where they are. as the drivers make their way down to the Porsche curves here. It's going to be a challenge in the GTE machinery to make their way through this. The GTE cars, they do produce quite a bit of aerodynamic downforce, but they rely on mechanical grip a bit more than the LMP1s do, so they'll be a lot slower through this section of the track, and you see that wall there between the corners. Jonathan Bain just getting into that wall. Got to be very careful through there. If you hit that wall too hard, you will get some damage, and if you get any physical damage to the wheel arches, the bumpers of this car, it's going to cost you a lot around a circuit like this. Lots of straight line sections here at Le Mans, which means any aero damage is what you would like to avoid. And particularly for the LMP1 class, I want to avoid those big curbs there in the Ford chicane, because any floor damage to the LMP1 is going to absolutely kill your straight line speed. Well, the practice session is over. Checkered flag flies. Drivers practicing the pit entry, which is very difficult here at Le Mans. You've got to negotiate a couple of chicanes on the way into the pits here at this circuit. But that won't be for a while once they get into the racing action. And here is the grid then for this round of the Majors Series. Pole position in the LMP1 class is going to go to Robert Northway, second in the championship, with Daniel Stevens starting alongside him on the front row. Joshua Thomas and Shane Bowen are going to be starting third and fourth. Thomas Hins and Gavin Barber will round out the top six there. Then we go to our sportsman pole of Adam Preston. He's going to start alongside Hayden Mcchesney, with Adrian Stefan and Simon Francis rounding out the top 10. David Nichols and Chaston Teets rounding out the top 12 there. There's James Catchpole, Connor Brown and Julian Mookie, the last of our LMP1s here tonight, Daniel.
That's correct. Unfortunately, it seems we've got a small issue there. So Julian Mookie actually currently are in behind a row of our GTE class drivers. But we'll see how things go there. Dwayne Burns and Jaden Hopp, the leaders in that class tonight in their pro division as well. And then Blake Neck will be third in class for that group of cars. Sam Harper, fourth in GTE, along with Alexander Sheridan, Dean Mole and Jonathan Bean at the back group of the pro in GTE. And then it's our sportsman drivers for GTE. Chi Xiang Wang leading that group away, with Nick McMillan alongside him for 23rd, 24th outright. And then Stuart Elder, Dave Trevethan, Jake Fox, Phil Otto, Costa Karaklasic, Corey Horder, Matt Chalker, Joshua Robertson and Ryan Mulder. 33 cars here to race tonight. And, well, there you go. 16 and a half rows of cars. This should be a good one, and looks like, no, indeed, there is an LMP1 car trapped amongst the GTEs. So,
oh dear,
that's not quite what Julian Mookie would want, being at the back of the sportsman class tonight. And now, well, he's going to be isolated by quite a bit of time. And I want manually set grids here. It's how we are able to skip past qualifying to sort the grid out here. It looks like, unfortunately, it's been a small mistake there. But, well, LMP1 car, Julian Mookie can get through and catch up, I suppose. But, well, he's going to have a lot more work ahead of him here tonight, given he's out of position. And we've got ourselves, well, the class leaders in GTE are leaving a gap to the P1 cars, as is typical with multi-class racing here on the iRacing platform.
Yeah, another big disadvantage for Julian Mookie is that, as we saw at the top of the show, he is the leader of the sportsman class overall in the championship, so this is not the kind of start that Mookie will want here. He'll be making short work of getting by those GTEs and making his way up to his fellow LMP1 class competitors. The French Air Force putting the tricolour across the start-finish stretch of this brilliant circuit here at Le Mans, as the LMP1 class makes their way to the final chicanes. The pace car will pull in momentarily once it gets past the Ford chicane, and then Robert Northway will be the one controlling the race start, and it looks like he might look to go a bit early here. Yes, indeed, he puts the power down, the green flag flies, he catches everyone by surprise there as the field gets off to a start. We are racing at Le Mans for the 2.4 in the Majors Series, and it looks like a nice clean start for the LMP1 class as they come into the Dunlop chicane for the first time. A little bit deep there for Daniel Stevens, opens himself up to an attack from Josh Thomas as the GTE class now gets off to a good start here.
Dear.
Oh, yeah.
Bit of trouble up at the Dunlop chicane. James Catchpole and
yeah.
Connor Brown, sportsman entries at the back of the field there, have come undone. Race gets underway in the meantime for the GTE class. Julian Mookie immediately breaks out ahead there of those guys, had to leave a gap to make sure he could get the run off the final chicane, but the GT cars make their way through the the Dunlop chicanes, for the first time here. Looks like they've gotten through okay. It's a bit of trouble for Chas and Teets up the road in sportsman class, and he's already crashed the car, unfortunately, and back to the pits. That's 3 LMP1s. Reese, who are unfortunately... Joshua Thomas and Simon Francis, multiple drivers have gotten tripped up, and it's become a bit of a war zone somewhere down the Mulsanne Straight. So we're going to go back to a virtual racing school replay and try and dissect where it happened, because Josh Thomas here, J.M. Thomas on our overlays. Oh dear, spinning all by himself through the S's on that one, and then collected as the field comes through. Oh, not much he could do, nor I reckon the other guy there who came past, and oh boy, it's absolutely obliterated Thomas's Audi there, and back to the pits he goes.
That's unfortunate there. Well, plus side of it is that in the majors, you do get one spare car to use throughout a race event, as it looks like there's some good racing going on there in the LMP1 class as they make their way down to the Mulsanne corner for the first time. It's looks like they're going to be racing into the night here. It's 8:10 virtual standard time in the evening. It looks like problems here for one of the Corvettes. And I think that might be a slowdown for the MFR Corvette there, unfortunately. It works out okay, though. No one else involved. Jonathan Bain not getting off to a good start, as there's a pass for the lead once again. Northway, he found himself in second place versus Daniel Stevens, but now he has taken the lead back. And this is a good opportunity for us to discuss the differences between the Porsche 919 and the Audi R18. The Porsche is able to generate its hybrid power, not just from the brakes, but also from the turbocharger as well. The Audi, by contrast, only produces it through braking. That's the main difference between them. Looks like there's been some problems for Nick McMillan in the GTE class. He's gone for a big spin on the way down to the Mulsanne corner, and he's gotten a bit of damage there to the front end of his Porsche 911. He just lost it under brakes on the way into the corner. It looked like the drivers in front of him were Lake Neck leading the class comfortably from Dwayne Burns. Have a look at the battle for third, though. Jaden Hopp holding off overall championship leader Sam Harper.
Yeah, that's going to be important over the course of this race. Oh, Harper there gets a little bit locked it up into Arnage for the first time for these guys through here now. So obviously got to be careful here. And this is what I was sort of talking about, is these cars, all of them, whether it's LMP1 or GTE tonight, are configured for minimum downforce to maximize straight line speed. And that does mean that these cars are going to be compromised through our high-speed turns, such as the Porsche curves here at the end of the lap, but also your braking zones. You don't have that aero to help you sort of bleed the speed off, and when that aero, what little of it drops away, you're obviously then relying more on the mechanical grip to make sure you pull it up, and these GTE cars don't have any of that ABS support, so have to make sure you don't lock the brakes front or rear, because that will not only wreck the tyres, but easily rear locking. Could see these cars slide out of control. Jump on board with Jonathan Bean once again, almost trying to get past, who would that have been? Ryan Mulder in the sportsman class in that BMW ahead of him. So Jonathan's a bit out of place at the moment, and in fact is quite a ways behind the next car in pro class amongst the GT. So he'll be looking to try and push up here as James Catchpole, after fixing or recovering the car there at the Dunlop chicane, has brought himself into the pits. So definitely been a rough race start for him already, as our race leaders continue to go side by side, and the good slipstream from Dan Stevens pulls out comfortably before we get to the second chicane here on the Mulsanne Straight race, and takes back the race lead overall. And here, well, LMP1 is also the overall lead, I should say, of course.
Yes, so once again using the better deployment of hybrid power there for the Porsche 919, but the Audi R18 has a little bit of an advantage. It can certainly do lap times around about the same as the 919. But when it comes to the pits, their fuel tanks are configured such that it takes around about the same time to fill it up. Big difference between the two also is that the Audi is powered by a diesel V6 twin-turbo, Porsche 919 a twin-turbo V4, as that is a pass there just behind the Audi R18 on the way down, as Robert Northway once again takes the lead back from Daniel Stevens coming into the Indianapolis corner. And does seem that there's a big difference between the way these guys are deploying their hybriders. Goodness me, it's getting tight there in the GTE class. That's the 272 there of Ryan Mulder fending off Costa Karaklajic there. And it looks like Mulder got a very good exit from the chicane there, but it is looking incredibly close between these guys. 22nd to 26th overall, 11th to 15th in GTEs. Looks like it's a problem for one of the Audis there at the back of the LMP class. That's Julian Mookie, who's come a cropper at Mulsanne Corner. We'll get a virtual racing school replay of that. Of course, Mookie running by himself because he was mired back in the GT pack at the start of the race, thanks to the way the grid was configured. And it looks like just losing the rear end there. Got to be very careful not to lock the brakes in these cars. They do the majority of their braking via the rear. So, unfortunately, that might have mucked up Julian Mookie's deployment there as we check out the GTE class once again. Car 31 of Dean Moll chasing down Stuart Elder and Joshua Robertson. This is the battle for 8th in the GT class.
Yeah, you can see here, Dean, one of our pro class drivers, and well, after his fantastic race with Sam Harper, of course, at the end of the Majors Indy 500 last time out, when we were watching them, he'll be looking to hopefully, I think, have a good result on the board here tonight. 2.4, but there's a little bit on the guys who obviously are out ahead leading the field. 15 seconds off of Blake Neck, who's leading the GT class outright. As we turn our attention back to the LMP ones again here, Reese, and look at that. Thomas Hinz has stormed to P3 in class and half a second off of our race leader and Robert Northway. Well, Dan Stevens is going to take that lead back again under brakes here into the Daytona chicane. So these guys continuing to trade back and forth with the slipstream wherever it pleases. Another pass there in the background of shot. That would be David Nichols getting past Adam Preston to pass for third in sportsman class amongst the LMP ones here. As sportsman leader is Hayden Mcchesney, who's doing a fantastic job running fourth place there outright, as you can see from the gold number 66 there on the timing tower.
Here's the battle for 14th overall. It's Harper, Sheridan and Qi Wang fighting for third place in GTE. The Porsche and the Ford going at it. Very big curb usage there from Alexander Sheridan. And it doesn't look like that's translated into a good exit down the start-finish straight. Battling still going on here. Is that Northway fallen to third? Yes, Thomas Hinz indeed making the move there on Robert Northway to get into second. Hinz, as you mentioned before, Dan, on an absolute charge here, and he's looking to try and make time up on Daniel Stevens as Dean Moll is in the pits early. It looks like he got a meatball flag somewhere along the line in his Kinetic Avatar Corvette. A big incident out there on track.
Yep, roll back to Tetra Rouge at the start of lap number 2 for Dean Moll, and you'll find the answer as to what's happened to him, unfortunately. And the worst thing about it is it's been completely all by himself as we continue to watch his... Oh, it's Hinz around the outside at Arnage. Dan Stevens isn't giving it up too easily, but it brings Robert Northway right back to the gearboxes of these Porsches. Northway up the inside as we head towards the Porsche curves. It was who wide again. Stevens backs out, so Hinz on the outside as we come into the corner here. Northway up the inside and takes that lead back for now. These three are going at it. You would have thought this is a sprint race, not a 2.4 hour solo endurance the way they're going at it now here, Reese.
Yeah, I agree. I was about to say that. We've still got 2.25 hours to go in this thing, and the leaders are battling like it's the very last lap. They haven't made up too much time on the drivers behind them either. Bowen, McChesney, and Barber are still right there with them. That is your top 6 in LMP1, all in the same frame, same piece of racetrack. So Northway taking advantage of the fighting between Northway and Hinz. Northway did not want to give up the lead at Arnage, and that has ultimately cost them for the time being. So now, here we go into Dunlop. Stevens trying to take it back here on Thomas Hinz. Will he be able to get it done down the first part of the Mulsanne Straight? Oh dear, that's a problem for one of the Forge racing cars. Is that Harper? No, it's Stuart Elder who's gone for a bit of a run there at the second chicane, and that looks like some heavy damage to the front. Can he keep it out of the wall? No, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not looking too healthy, unfortunately. We'll have a chance to look at that thanks to Virtual Racing School. And the replay here is into the second of the chicanes. Here you go, and was looking A-okay there, just a little unsettled by the bump through the middle of the apex there, and unfortunately slams hard into the Armco with the right side of that car. Mechanical black flag on his vehicle, and oh dear, well, from bad to worse for Dean Mole. He opted not to use the fast repair, it seems, tonight to try and fix it up and keep that fast repair in hand, but he's also then gone and picked up a black flag along the way, unfortunately. So, well, yeah, from bad to worse for your Indy 500 winner. And apologies there, a small technical issue with our broadcaster feed there as drivers continue their way around the track. And we look here now to see Dan Stevens still in behind Thomas Hinz. They're closing in quite quickly, though, on Robert Northway once again. So, yeah, the back and forth between our leaders of the race in LMP1 here, Reese. They aren't letting up. They've got their first bit of traffic here in GTE. Nick McMillan, one of our sportsman entries for Kinetic Avatar, smartly stays over to the left side of circuit, and our LMP1s can head on through there at the Mulsanne corner and keep going at it on the way down to Indianapolis here. As you can see, they're now got 7 LMP1s, making 8 LMP1s there in frame if we look back far enough.
And Hinz in the slipstream of Northway is going to go up the inside coming into Indianapolis. Will Northway give this one up, or will he fight it on the way in? It looks like lifting out early is Northway. Get on the brakes a little bit earlier. Just drag the brakes at the start of the braking zone, and you will be able to generate a little bit more hybrid power when you get onto the throttle next. It's very tactical racing in LMP1s. It looks like Northway already thought about deploying a lot of that as we check in on Blake Neck here at the front of our GTE class. Look at the lead that he's gotten already. That's Dwayne Burns there in second. They've got the LMP of James Catchpole in between them, but it's looking like a nice battle there for second in the GTE class. Catchpole's made his way past Neck, so they can resume normal racing action.
Yeah, it's actually quite fascinating to see there the way Blake Neck has been able to sort of streak out that lead ahead of his fellow GTE drivers. A bit of headlight flashing there. I believe that was Jonathan Bain, the Corvette, amongst the various other cars there, as we quickly jump back to our LMP1 race leaders. Top 3 still line astern as they come through the last of the Ford chicanes here to complete their 4th lap of the race, and that's the slow exit off the final chicane there for Robert Northway, because here comes Dan Stevens. And yeah, maybe just used up his hybrid a little earlier in the lap here, because Stevens looking very racy here into the Dunlop chicane. Oh, Northway does not give him the time of day of space. Around goes Stevens from P3. And, well, that's a painful loop back and gather it up, because he drops to 8th place in class. Make that 9th as Adam Preston goes through. And, well, now that's just going to reshuffle things a bit here. And, well, Northway now has 1.6 seconds of gap ahead, and he's got Shane Bowen for 3rd place in Kinetic Avatar, now on his bumper at half a second and closing fast here down the Mulsanne.
Indeed. Well, Shane Bowen also in the Audi R18 here, so it's Audi versus Audi on the way down to the first chicane. You got to brake a little bit earlier for this one, around about the 200-meter marker in most cars, and it looks to me like Bowen keeps it nice and stable through that chicane. Checking back in with the number 52 of Sam Harper. He is chasing down Dwayne Burns for 2nd in GTE, and with Blake Neck out of the picture for the time being, he's just so far ahead of the rest of the class. He's putting down some fantastic times. Now it is all down to Burns and Harper there for 2nd, and comparing their lap times, it looks to me like Harper took 4/10 out of Dwayne Burns on the previous lap, so that Ford is looking especially slippery.
Quite surprising. I think, well, Blake Neck has been a fast driver, in particular this year. Has really picked it up this year, I'd have to say, compared to, well, what I've not really seen much of him in years previous, unfortunately, but certainly making a good show here of things this year. It is just impressive, really, given the way this track does sort of favour slipstreaming and the ability to stick together in a pack. But Neck, it's only been a handful of laps for these GTE cars. In fact, well, they're on their 4th lap, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, coming to the end of their 4th lap here. As up the inside, Harper thinks about it into the Porsche curves on Burns. But, well, maybe it's stuff like this. These guys now duking it out amongst themselves here. It's just given Neck all the gap he needs. He's also lapping in the 3-minute 48s personal best last time around. And, well, that's nearly 2 seconds clear of everyone else in GTE. So he's got an absolute rocket ship underneath him here in these opening laps. And, well, if these guys keep fighting like that, though, for P2, that will just consolidate and really seal a deal as this race continues to go on.
Yeah, it looks to me like when we were riding on board with Harper, he was struggling with understeer through the Porsche curves, so those fronts are not quite where they need to be for Harper, losing a bit of time there to Dwayne Burns, but nonetheless, he still gets into the 349s, does Sam Harper, running 5/10 faster at the moment as we check in on Phil Otto, getting ready to be lapped by the LMP1 leaders. It was a pretty close call for Thomas Hinz in the Porsche curves, having to make his way past Matt Chalker, but he did manage to make his way through, waits until the exit. There's another problem there for Robert Northway. It looks like he got very crossed up through the Ford chicane.
And the answer is, yep, definitely crossed up indeed, because it's cost him with an iRacing slowdown as, troubles for the number 91 of Adam Preston. Was running up there in the sportsman group of drivers in LMP1, and he's missed the pit entry, so he's going to have to take that car around a whole other lap back on the replay thanks to Virtual Racing School. So, slowdown. So this is earlier on in the chicane complex, but we'll go back to look at Preston here on his approach into the chicanes. And oh dear, GT car ahead, locks up the brakes, making sure he doesn't crash into them, and unfortunately locking the rears at high speed at the opening part of the Ford chicanes. Well, that's a recipe to go rapidly into the wall. Was back to live pitches here recently, and it's getting very busy as we're watching the LMP1s now make their way past a group of these GTE class drivers. Northway back up to second, but he's now racing with Hayden Mcchesney for second in LMP1. And, well, McChesney is the leader of our sportsman drivers in the LMP class, is really putting down his mark here because it's absolutely out of place compared to the rest of the drivers in his class at this early phase here, and really showing he's earning himself an outright spot here on the podium at this rate.
Yeah, McChesney is doing incredibly well, isn't he? It's been a very strong opening stint there for the number 66, but Northway will be looking to try his best and make up a bit more time on Thomas Hinz. Was battling with Daniel Stevens earlier, but now Stevens is out of the picture for the time being. Looks to me like Stevens making his way up to 8th after that incident for Adam Preston, as there goes Northway trying to get it done on McChesney. They go for the pincer move around the GTE Porsche of Jake Fox, and that's really held up Shane Bowen and Gavin Barber. They're going to have to stay behind there through the Mulsanne corner. And that's one of the big aspects of multi-class racing here at Le Mans. If you're in the faster class, you can't just go for dive bombs willy-nilly. You've got to wait, as Sam Harper is definitely not waiting to try and make the move on Dwayne Burns. Peeks up the inside at Indianapolis. Oh, pull it up, mate, pull it up. Goodness gracious, runs wide, and that might put him under pressure from Alexander Sheridan. You can tell that Harper is certainly got the pace there as he makes way for Thomas Hinz. But, man, he's just not able to get it done, is he?
No, it's a real challenge there, it seems, getting this car pulled up. And you can see here, it's actually brought our sportsman leader amongst the GT drivers, Chi-Xiang Wang, here in the number 073 BMW. But watch out, here comes Robert Northway. 3 wide on the initial entry to the Porsche curves as Northway fires it up the inside of them all, and then McChesney follows through around the outside of the first part of the curves. And this is what it's like here at Le Mans, dealing with multi-class traffic in the part where you need downforce and you don't have any to spare, especially for these GT cars. Look at the prototypes weaving their way through here, finding every little bit of gap they can get, but they're having to back themselves off as a result. But it looks like we're going to get through this first wave here relatively okay now as these guys continue their driving here. And, well, that's Dwayne Burns there. Part of the number 5 is Alexander Sheridan. Cars here, top 5 and fit for GTE, and just been passed by Chi-Xiang Wang last lap around. Troubles for McChesney, slow down on that last lap, and he's overshot the first chicane here. So number 66 LMP1 showing a little bit of a mistake there. First time we've seen that out of him tonight, which, well, that could be costly if more of those occur, as it's brought the next guys in behind, Shane Bowen and Gavin Barber, right to his gearbox as we approach the Mulsanne straight once more.
Yeah, the Audi and the Porsche chasing down a Porsche. Oh, that was very close to getting a slowdown there for McChesney. It's not going to translate into a good run, and oh my goodness, Shane Bowen had to back out of it, flashing his lights in annoyance there. Wouldn't have wanted that to happen. But my goodness, he is gearing up here for a move at the chicane. Will he be able to tow Gavin Barber through is the big question. Doesn't look like it. They're coming up on Blake. Neck. Oh, Neck has to miss the chicane there. Couldn't get the turn in because Mcchesney, I think, was a bit optimistic with the dive, and Neck is not happy at all with that one. Neck having to serve a slowdown on the way through as well. Fortunately for Neck, he's got such a big lead here in the GTE class, he doesn't have to worry about losing position, but still, you wouldn't want to have that happen much more.
No, he would not want that at all. He's, very lucky to have built out 10 seconds, which is now going to get eaten into as we see Mcchesney there for a moment, thinking about the second chicane again on Gavin Barber, but has to back out of it. So we need these guys to make sure they're not doing anything too rash here. Again, we are still not even reached the 2 hours to go marker in this race, and they are really starting to throw each other around here and put everything on the limit, which is not what you need here in a multi-class race. You've got to make sure you're looking out for those guys in the slower car class. They're often racing at 10 tenths, and if they're doing that, they don't have anything left in the tank when you all of a sudden arrive on the scene because you've got more grip or you've got more turning speed. You've got to make sure that you don't go in too deep. As looking at the back of Shane Bowen's number 7 machine here, up the inside goes Gavin Barber as we approach Indianapolis. So that acceleration rate has really slowed out there as he pulled out of the draft, but Bowen's not looking to fight him too hard here. But Mcchesney always thinks about it into Indianapolis there, Reese, and forces Bowen on the narrow entry there, but they get through. So, oh, God, Barber's spun in the in front of these two.
Oh, looks like they all managed to keep themselves together, though. Mcchesney trying to go through on Bowen, and David Nichols taking advantage and getting the position as well. This is not a good position for Mcchesney to be in, because you see that rainbow-coloured Porsche behind him? That's second in Sportsman in LMP1. That is Adrian Stefan, who's trying to find his way through. Those mistakes that Mcchesney made earlier on are starting to cost him. He'll want to put down some good times now, make sure he gets a clean run, and he'll be able to gap his closest competitor for points as Bowen tries to find his way back past Adrian Stefan here. Doesn't look like he will. In fact, if anything, he's lifting out of it. Might be a slowdown there for Bowen. He went a bit too far beyond the curve at the beyond the curb, sorry, at the exit of the Porsche curves, I would gather. And there's still big racing going on here in the GTE class. We're going to focus on Jake Fox here, and looks like there might have been a problem for him here at Indianapolis. Oh yeah, that'll do it. Goodness gracious, manages to slow down? No. Unfortunately, a head-on collision with the tyre barrier. That's a big shame for him. Oh, it's been a big crash in LMP1. That is huge. That battle we were just looking at, they have all come together at the start of the lap.
Yep, that has gone absolutely shocker. Oh, Mcchesney and David Nichols both had slowdowns from the Porsche curves. They tried serving them in the Ford chicane. It backed everybody up here. And then here we go down the front straightaway. It's Shane Bowen trying to come through here with a clean run. He gets past Mcchesney through the first sweeper here, but then Mcchesney out wide, offline into the Dunlop chicane, and he spins and then collects everyone behind him as a result. Oh, boy, it looks like it's just these guys throwing absolutely everything they can at each other, but it's just causing them all pain and suffering, and it's just damage and reckless driving we don't need to see out of these guys this early on.
Yeah, we got to remember that this is a long race, and it doesn't matter the positions this early on. If you back off a little bit, just make sure that you keep the car clean. It will pay off at the end. Unfortunately, I think at least one or two of those guys are going to have to take their fast repair at the next pit stop. Have a look at that. Every single one of them carrying a bit of damage now.
It does boggle the mind at some of the extent to which some of these guys are racing here at this stage of the race. I mean, obviously, it looks kind of good for us in the spectacle's sake, but at the same time, we don't want to see guys having damage and causing wrecks not 25 minutes into this race. I mean, unfortunately, we call it a 2.4, but technically it's 2.4 plus 1 minute because of the way that we can't set an exact minute count timer here, but we'll worry about that another time here as David Nichols is looking to try and get past Shane Bowen, but backs out of it into the Mulsanne corner, and we'll think about it perhaps down to Indianapolis perhaps. But, well, there's your race leader. In the meanwhile, Thomas Hinz has now got some clean track, having negotiated all of the GTE drivers for the first time in this race. And look at that, 4.5 seconds up on Robert Northway, who's been able to lock down in second place. But then it's a 15-second gap back to Daniel Stevens in third. Like, our LMP1 leaders now have just been completely broken apart and separated, although at this stage, I don't think they've got damage because they've all, at least the top three, are out minding their own business. So I think it's just a matter of early pace differential was really showing itself off here, Reese.
Yeah, well, don't forget also that Daniel Stevens was recovering from an earlier error. He was gifted all those positions when there was the big pile up at the Dunlop chicane, so he's back to where he supposes he should be, as Muki making his way through again here on GTE traffic. It's the battle for eighth in the GTE class. Bain, Fox, and there's Dave Trevethan and Ryan Mulder. Porsche versus BMW. It's a battle of the Teutonic Knights here on the way into the Mulsanne corner. Looks like Mulder just keeping it nice and calm there behind the Porsche, and nice exit onto the straight towards Indianapolis. Not really a straight, there's two right-hand kinks in it as they have to make way here for another LMP1. Looks like that will get itself sorted nicely down the straight. That is the number 91 of Adam Preston that has made his way past. So, this battle here, goodness me, it's incredible. As there we go, into the pits comes Mcchesney and David Nichols, and I would presume that that would be for damage. Now, as these drivers come into the pits, we should highlight that a typical fuel stint in the LMP1 cars should take about 45 to 50 minutes, about 13 laps or so, I would presume, of the Circuit de la Sarthe.
Yes, obviously well early for a pit stop here, unfortunately for these guys, but that's what happens when you throw caution to the wind and put yourself out of sequence because you're now taking damage repairs. Nichols in out pretty quick there, 17 seconds for him. Mcchesney, though, has gone up on the jack, so he's taking full service here, perhaps to try and get extra damage repairs done, but also now just completely change up his strategy, and away he goes after 33 seconds stationary in his box. There's your race leader once again, Reese. Now the gap up to 5 seconds between Thomas Hinz and Robert Northway. So that Porsche out in front is looking like an absolute hot rocket there. 4/10, last lap around was 4/10 a second different, but not the fastest car on track. That belonged to Joshua M. Thomas, who is unfortunately well back in 13th place outright, and is the last of our pro class drivers in LMP1 after his earlier spin and damage. You can see there, he makes his way down towards the second of the Mulsanne chicanes, and unfortunately he opted to not use his fast repair, Reese. 6.5 minutes stationary in the box. He's now over a lap down with a unlikely chance of getting that back during this race.
Yeah, unfortunate there for JM Thomas, but I think a wise decision to not use the spare car that early on. If there's another incident further on in the race, he won't lose as much time. As there's a problem for one of our GTE runners. It looks like very heavy crabbing for Corey Horter, indeed, and it looks like after a little bit of trying to get that car underneath him, he's decided, nah, I'm just going to go back to the pits. So this was a problem for him at Indianapolis. A very challenging corner. You got to go through this fast right-hander while braking for the left, and once again, similar to what we saw a bit earlier for Jake Fox, the car just gets loose through the right-hander, and it's very difficult to recover, and that's turned into incredibly heavy damage.
Indeed, unfortunately for him, towing that car back to the pits. A little moment for Joshua M. Thomas while he was on his own. Did another lock-up at Mulsanne, a lot like what we saw earlier on in the race from one of our other LMP drivers, just in a bit too late, and the rear end locks up thanks to the hybrid system on the car. And we've got to set up the brakes that way as we watch this side-by-side down the Mulsanne straightaway. Unfortunately, I missed out. Who was there? Go Ryan Mulder. Excellent, that saves my bacon. So he's got Jake Fox right alongside him as they head to the second chicane. Fox late on the brakes is going to swing around the outside. Make sure to leave a space there for Mulder. So good driving from the two of them, and they get through the chicane not too badly there. Although Fox a little slower on the exit, giving the space means that Mulder has got half a chance of getting up the inside here, and indeed is already up alongside as we make our way up towards top gear for both drivers as they head towards the Mulsanne corner. And it looks like this will be Mulder's corner to take here under brakes, but Fox matching him under brakes here into the corner, and Mulder nice and gentle on the brakes and respectful of the car on the outside, although a little bit of a close call there as they came together almost on corner exit. And again, Mulder better run once this car's getting up to speed here. Bit of side draft in it perhaps as they make their way towards Indianapolis. Reese, hopefully now he'll have the confidence to take that lead into the turn, because Well, Fox is clearly not willing to back out of this. He's going to consider side-by-side into Indianapolis. And he does finally roll out a little bit more there. And Mulder gets that spot. Or gets it back, perhaps. One way or the other there.
Yes, well, that's the kind of racing that you expect here at Le Mans. Drivers just taking their time with moves, not putting themselves in too much danger. Some really good racing amongst the competitors in the GTE class. I don't think there's been any actual comings together in that class. As we check back in on Gavin Barber and Shane Bowen, the battle for fourth in LMP1. These drivers have had a pretty good race so far. Bowen has lost one position, Barber up two as they make their way past the Ford GT of Stuart Elder, who's running way down after having to take some damage repair early on. It does seem like these two are content to just lap with each other for a while, as we're getting news of a meatball flag for Hayden Mcchesney. He has brought his car back into the pits, unfortunately. That's such a shame there for Hayden. He was running so well early on, but right after that big incident at the Dunlop chicane, his race has just fallen apart.
Yeah, that is definitely not what you want to see from an early on in this race. And just trying to see if I can figure out when it's happened. And, well, I'm not too sure. Not seeing any reports that he had a full-on crash. So maybe just got himself over a curb a little bit wrong there as we watch on board with one of our Porsches. A little bit wide there, potentially, on the run down Tetra Rouge. But no, all good there. And then there we go. It's Chi-Seung Wang in fourth place with Jaden Hopp behind him, chasing him down. Or at least attempting to here. Slowly, steadily catching in the slipstream, but looks like he won't be there in time for the first of the chicanes here, Daytona, and we'll have to set it up for the second part of the Mulsanne, or maybe even the third part down to the Mulsanne corner at the very end. A little bit deep there from Wang in the BMW. That will maybe give Hop some incentive here, but again, these BMWs tonight look like they've got good traction and drive in the lower RPMs and speeds here tonight. Reese, slipstream or no, the Porsches looking a little bit better at the top end of these straights at this stage, I think.
Yeah, looks like it. At the very end of the straights, it is the BMWs that have the edge. We saw that in the battle between Ryan Mulder and Jake Fox as Daniel Stevens comes in for his first stop of the day. It's looking like about 35 minutes is a full stint in the LMP1, so my apologies for my earlier error. The stint's going to be about 10 minutes shorter in the LMP1s, so we should expect Hinz, Northway, Barber, Bowen and the like in for their first stop pretty soon, as Wang still tries to hold off Jaden Hopp. I gotta say, it's been a very good performance from Chi-Seung Wang so far. He's been doing fantastic, and he has a great lead over Joshua Robertson to the tune of about 11 seconds. That's the battle for the sportsman lead in GTEs. It looks like he's just lifted out early there to let Jaden Hopp go. Was it a slowdown?
Yes, I can see it right now on my timing screens. He's been a little bit too happy-go-lucky there at the Mulsanne corner and has had to let through Hopp there ahead. And still having to clear that slowdown here into Indianapolis. If he's not careful, there we go, gets it cleared under brakes into Indianapolis proper. So does lose him a little bit of time, 0.8 of a second behind now, but he can slot in for a lap or two and get some slipstream of his own going here as we continue to check back in with Gavin Barber and Shane Bowen continuing around here on their 11th lap of this race. Now, that's obviously important because that means they'll be going that extra lap compared to Daniel Stevens, but we should expect, most of these drivers in soon. Curious as to how much longer they can stretch these tanks here in this opening stage. No moves at this stage also indicates to me that Bowen is going to opt to ride in behind. Both drivers a little deep there into the Mulsanne corner, which will hurt their run ever so slightly down the straightaway here. But, well, actually, no, look at that bang. Gavin Barber looks to have absolutely dumped the hybrid system into his Porsche there, because he's absolutely opened the door there in that initial phase of the straightaway into Indianapolis.
Yep, nice tactical usage of the hybrid system there down these straight line sections. If you try your best to dump it, you can get a nice gap over your rival, and I think he knew as they make their way past the GTE of Matt Chalker, that they had a car there that they had to pass, and that would have disadvantaged Shane Bowen just a little more. So I think a very prescient use of the hybrid system there by Barber as we get our race leader Thomas Hinz into the pit lane now. Early there as Robert Northway goes a lap longer at least in the Audi R18, and that is a new fastest lap of the race for Robert Northway, 3 minutes 10.5. That is fantastic pace that Northway has at the moment.
Unfortunately though, can't back it up this time by, although this surely will now be his in-lap as he stretches for a 12th lap out of the tank here, because that GT traffic has just come at, unfortunately, the wrong time for him. More of our cars coming down the lane. Barber and Bowen together.
That's why Barber dumped the hybrid there. He knew he was going into the pits.
Yep, there you go. Gap Bowen there for a bit. You can see, though, Bowen closed it all back up in the final part of the lap as they came down onto the lane. So they will do their service together here. Thomas Hinz, 22.2 seconds stationary, and he's already rolling once again down the lane, and out he comes now. See here, he's got Matt Chalker and one of the Sportsman GTEs who opts to roll out of it and slot in behind. So good awareness there from Chalker to not push the issue there into the first chicane and allow Hinz to carry on with a nice clean bit of track ahead of him here. I can actually see all clear through the S's. He might even have it all the way clear up Tetra Rouge and the Mulsanne Straights. That's done very nicely there for an outlap for Hinzy here.
Yeah, that it has. Well, Bowen, Barber, they're joined in the pit lane by Adrian Stefan, and it looks like reasonable pit stops there from Bowen and Barber, 23.4 and 25.6 seconds respectively, but Daniel Stevens, crucially, only 21.2 seconds stopped. Don't forget, though, he pitted a couple of laps earlier, so he did, I think he did have a little bit less fuel to put in the car as Phil Otto and Jonathan Bain look to trade places here. Kinetic Avatar versus Middle Finger Racing, and that is going to be Jonathan Bain on his way through. Still having to sort some issues from earlier is Bain in the Corvette, still down 3 positions from where he started. So Simon Francis and Josh Thomas here fighting over 12th and 13th position in LMP1. Second and third last of the cars that are running in that class. We have seen that Mcchesney is still in the pits and I think getting an awful lot of damage repair done. But can Thomas make his way past Francis here in the Mulsanne Straight? No, lifts out of the throttle. I think he's realized now he'll just get on the brakes a little earlier, generate a bit more hybrid, a bit more electricity power, and he can deploy it when they get back up to the Mulsanne corner. Also a couple of GTEs they have to make their way past as well. Looks to me like that might be Matt Chalker and Nick McMillan potentially that they just made their way past. But it does seem like he's going to have to wait a little bit longer to get that done. So, checking back in with Robert Northway, the current race leader, staying out the longest out of our LMP1s. He certainly saved a bit of fuel on the way through here, and as we expect, he comes into the pit lane, and here's the onboard of that very difficult pit entry. Got to negotiate a double chicane on your way in, or really just one chicane, because the limiter line comes up before the second one. So now, Northway into the pits. Let's see how long this stop takes.
Yes, be very curious to watch here. There's your previous race leader, Thomas Hinz, heading up into the Porsche curves. Now, Northway's pit box is nice and far up the lanes. He's got a long way to trundle here under the pit speed limit, so Hinz almost certainly will retake that race lead as he now exits the Porsche curves into the Corvette curves. He comes all nice and tidy on his outlap here. And, well, now we wait to see. Northway has reached the box at the front of the lane and begins the time ticking away. Hinz now going through the final of the 4 chicanes. Should see, yeah, he will take the race lead back once again, but Northway's had a good in-lap here on a 3-minute 20, or pardon me, it's a 3-minute 21 for him was his in-lap there. But that's the way that goes. 23.5 seconds, actually able to get a little bit more fuel in that car there perhaps, or just a little bit of variation with the pit stop as it so goes. But Hinz, a lot faster overall with the pit transit. He was, oh wow, that's actually quite a bit there. 3.5 seconds faster overall on the transit time there. So lead extends to 7.5 seconds and climbing here as, well, actually, no, it's gone down a bit because Hinz has just got some traffic before he arrived at Tetra Rouge.
Indeed he did, and that's what Robert Northway will be hoping for, so that he can get that lead back. And looks to me like he just got away with getting onto the tarmac there on the exit of Tetra Rouge. Blake next, still in the lead here for the GTE class, and these drivers will certainly be going a bit longer than the LMP1 cars. Neck currently leading the class by round about 17, maybe 18 seconds from Sam Harper. Actually, it's even bigger over 20 seconds. That is fantastic performance there from Blake Neck. He's definitely showing that he's the driver with the pace in the GTE class at the moment, but there could be question marks over his ability to maintain that pace over a long period of time. Remember, he was very fast during the Indy 500, but when we started getting into the late race, mistakes ended up costing him dearly.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of race, of course, in the Indy 500 versus a race here at Le Mans, but certainly the same kind of pressure because so much of it is at high speed. Just obviously a little bit more time to think, perhaps, in between some of the corners on board, though, with Joshua Robertson, one of our sportsman entries there up behind Dwayne Burns, who's actually got a bit of damage on his car there. That's something that we have missed in the previous. Actually, back on lap number 8, he crashed at some point earlier on into Indianapolis for Dwayne Burns. I'm just having a look at it now on replay myself, and it wasn't much. Oh, that's not the mistake you want to see. Dwayne Burns, the reason he's bent the wing is he clipped the gravel on the exit of Indianapolis. Just that we were watching him enter there as another one of our LMP drivers, James Catchpole, brings it down onto the lane here at the end of lap 13. Obviously out of sequence due to taking an early pit stop, but well, he'll be back out there in a moment's time. So there's the onboard from Dwayne Burns, and yeah, the reason that wing is bent is out of Indianapolis on lap number 8. Just clipped the gravel on the exit curb there, Reese, and well, right rear in the gravel, sent that Porsche around and into the other Armco on the left side of the circuit.
Big shame for him as making his way through now massively is Robert Northway. That shows you the difference in speed between these cars when you get to these fast corners. And I think Burns will be happy that that Mr. Robertson made that mistake on the way into Mulsanne. It's given him a little bit of extra breathing room. Got to be very careful on the brakes here at Le Mans. These cars do have traction control, but no anti-lock brakes, so got to be careful in those braking zones. Burns, though, seems to be keeping some consistent pace despite his damage as we check back forward here to the battle for third in GT. Alexander Sheridan by 1.6 seconds over Jaden Hopp, and going to have to make way here for another LMP, one of the Porsches. Oh, just catching the grass there, I think was Hopp. That is our leader, Thomas Hinz, making his way through. And up the inside at Tetra Rouge, goodness gracious. It's definitely not a place that you usually see cars go up the inside. And Hinsey on the light flash on the way out. Well, the driver he passed wouldn't have been able to see that.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a gamble there from Hinz. Obviously, I understand the concept of, well, at least trying to keep your momentum up there and keep things rolling. What it has done is actually allow Northway to continue closing the gap with getting some better timing here, because Northway is catching these guys down into the first chicane, but he's only going to get one of them. So he's going to be in the midst of a GTE sandwich, and he has to try and get that car across and around the outside. He does indeed, so he doesn't lose too much, but can carry a little bit more corner speed, obviously, in a prototype versus these GT cars through the slower turns. So that will allow that gap to stabilise now, but it's only at about 5.2 seconds for the race leaders. You continue to watch this battle for third with 0.6 the difference here between these two guys as they make their way down to the second of the Mulsanne chicanes. The next car up the road from them is unfortunately laps traffic in the form of Corey Horter, 17th in GTE, and one of our sportsman entries. I think also crucially, there's our next driver in behind for position, Chi-Seung Wang, 5th place for him. He's dropped off the back of these two, but only 4 seconds, and he's got plenty of time here to make that up, of course, as we're approaching 1 hour and 40 minutes remaining. So race is continuing to calm down now. It seems that we've got the initial excitement out of the way, although there we go in the background, a shot at Mulsanne. Oh, it's one of our guys there. Who was it? Jayden Hopp's gone around. Chi-Seung Wang almost followed him in at Mulsanne. So all kinds of drama there as these guys come down to one of the slowest corners on the track.
Yeah, and that was a case of Hop getting very unstable on the brakes on the way into Mulsanne. Here's the onboard, and watch his wheel in the bottom left-hand corner as he gets on the brakes. The rears start to protest a little, and Hop just goes straight on. Fortunately, there's a good gravel trap there that you can use, but of course, that's going to really stymie his straight line speed through that gravel trap at the very least. So Hop now a little bit off of Chi Xiang Wang and Alexander Sheridan, as that looks like a big incident there for Julian Mucki, finding the barrier. Looks to be in the Porsche curves. He had just been lapped by the leader, Thomas Hinz. So let's see what happened to him here on the way into the fastest corners on the track, which were added in 1977, I believe. A little bit wide there at the entry, and catches the gravel straight into the barrier. That is a massive incident. Those marshals would have gotten a hell of a fright.
Yes, absolutely. The good old magnetic fence there, sticking that car in, and has completely obliterated the front end of that machine. And, well, for your Sportsman Championship leader here in the Major Series, that's certainly not what you like to see. But back to live pictures and back to the front of the field, because look who's coming for the race lead with a vengeance. Robert Northway is there, 3.5 seconds off the race lead. He's got, it looks like it'll be Blake Neck there. He passes by, so cleanly past another bit of traffic. And look at the lap time delta here, thanks to Thomas Hinz. Just, I think, having to catch traffic in all the places he doesn't want to. And Northway isn't quite back up to that fastest lap pace that we saw just before the pit stop, but is putting in some really good laps here. And the ebb and the flow of the traffic here at the place, even like Le Mans, with all of these straightaways, evident as always once again.
Yeah, there's plenty of twisties around this track, as well as straight line speed, as Bowen and Barber negotiating traffic through the S's. One of the earliest changes to the Circuit de la Sarthe, the first purpose-built section of the track ever added back in the early 1920s. So, seems that Barber has lost a little bit of pace to Bowen there. And we're seeing Dwayne Burns now in the lane. Looks like the first of our GTE runners to get in for a regular pit stop. So looks to me like about a 12-lap stint is what we'll be looking for in those GTE machines. Now, how long will the pit stop actually be? And whether or not the drivers take tyres is an interesting proposition here, because at a track like Le Mans that is mostly straight lines, you don't tend to put much drama into those tyres. You can make them last for about 2 stints here in the daytime conditions, I would gather.
Yeah, we should be able to hit those 2 stint lengths here fairly easily, because also consider your weather conditions. Currently 21 degrees air temp, 23 track. We'll worry about that later, because there's Gavin Barber having a go at Shane Bowen off of the second of the Mulsanne chicanes. He's unable to make good on it there that time by, as the traffic just backed up Bowen there on the exit of the corner. That looks like that might have been, indeed it was, Sam Harper there. So he was just minding his own business through the second chicane as these 2 guys continue to scrap over P5 in class. And curious to see that in behind them, Hayden Mcchesney has returned to the racetrack after getting his damage repaired, but unfortunately he is now down in 32nd. The final driver still running on track, and, well, nearly a full lap behind even the next car on circuit, which is GTE class. You can see there Barber closing up to Bowen in the slipstream to Indianapolis, but not going to be able to make a move this time by Bowen up to the gravel there on corner exit. That's about as far as you want to push that car without risk. Oh, he's a deep though at Arnage. Barber up close, tries to get around the up the inside, and looks like he's closing and going for it here. They're going to be side by side into the Porsche curves.
Yeah, so who wins this fight when they come into the right-hander? It is Barber on the inside, and it looks like getting it done there on Bowen. I think Shane recognizing that, he was still recovering there from that mistake at the exit of Arnage, and he can take stock. He can stick in the slipstream of Barber for some time. Oh, be careful not to get a slowdown there.
He got one.
No, yeah, he did. So the idea here with the slowdowns at Le Mans is iRacing worked with the ACO to determine the track limit rules for Le Mans, at many of these corners you can put all four wheels beyond the white line and run all the way over the curbs, but you have to make it back onto the racetrack before the end of the curb, and there's a battle going on here in LMP1 with traffic involved. Simon Francis and Josh Thomas there trying to find their way past Josh Robertson, and it looks like winning the fight there was Simon Francis. Managed to make his way past in a very crucial spot, but JM Thomas back in the slipstream. Oh, a little bit too far back to make a move there into the first of our chicanes here, but a little bit offline there is Simon Francis. Might be a change for position there as more of our GTE runners come into the pits. Alexander Sheridan and Chi Xiang Wang.
So yeah, we can see now drivers having to bring their cars down the lane. Our race leader and top three in GTE, I should say, continue on as we continue to watch. Oh, Thomas is all over the back and pressuring Francis, who's gone wide at the first chicane. So through goes the 386, and slow down for him that he has to clear just before he gets to the chicane. Meanwhile, look at that delta for the race lead. We've been so busy with everything else that's going on track. The gap is continuing to slump. Thomas Hinz, looks like that Porsche is not so great with a full tank of fuel on board, and he definitely only took fuel given the pit stop time, but that Audi is definitely switching on here for Robert Northway in the opening part of the second stint.
Certainly is. Northway is putting down some fantastic times, running a second faster, almost about, I'd say 8/10 faster than Thomas Hinz on the previous lap, and pretty fantastic pace, it has to be said there for Northway. Definitely a contender for the race win here tonight. Hinz was on fire early on, making those big moves to get to the race lead, but now that he has found his way into the lead, he's stalled out a bit. Chi Xiang Wang makes his way out of the pits, and Alexander Sheridan as well. Looks to me like Sheridan took tyres on that stop, a much slower stop, so Sheridan going for a bit of an inverse strategy to the rest of the GTE class.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see if that one pays off here for him. But, well, early days still, an hour and a half and change still on the clock here for the Majors 2.4. Now, look at that there. Dwayne Burns not opting to take substantial repairs on his car yet, so he still has the bent wing, although his pit stop was longer than everyone else he had been or has pitted, with the exception of Alexander Sheridan, the number 5 car there with that long stop. Also matching him. Otherwise, everyone else keeping it simple. And look at that, another 2 seconds taken out of the race lead on that time by Robert Northway. So that's just surely not long left before we see Hinz and Northway going at it for the race lead. A little bit of traffic there, though, at the Dunlop chicane will stall Northway for a couple of turns here, it seems. But, well, looks like now with mostly clean air for these guys that they're circulating, and the GT cars are starting to break up thanks to the pit cycle. These guys are now really getting into their stride.
That they are. Well, the gap sits at about 1.3 seconds, but you see Northway's been getting a slightly better exit there out of the Tetra Rouge corner. On the way into this first Mulsanne chicane, we might see that gap go down ever further. Let's see what Hinz has in that Porsche. Northway's just keeping it nice and stable. Look at how smooth he is on the steering inputs. He's not taking any more out of that car than he needs to.
I think also they're watching very late on the downshifts, only going back into third gear here at the first of the chicanes Daytona, and then just getting up into sixth. The Audi, very long gear ratios, and you can see the revs very steadily rising, and then early on the brakes. So back to third for this one. As he go back to second? No, he keeps it in third once again. Going to rely on both the torque of the diesel engine as well as the hybrid power out of here, but not all that much hybrid deployment, I don't think, based on the way I'm watching those revs rise relatively steadily here for the 46. It is obviously quite interesting because obviously with so much electric power, so much of the powertrain delivered through the hybrid system here, Reese, you can very clearly tell when a driver is on the hybrid system and when they are not, based on the rate of acceleration up the revs.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of power these guys can put down out of the corners as well. The Porsche in particular has about 1,000 horsepower total to deploy on corner exit. And don't forget, the hybrid is mostly deployed through the front wheels. So these cars are effectively four-wheel drive when you get onto the throttle. And I've spent a lot of time driving these cars back in the day. They are incredibly fun machines to throw around any racetrack. That lead is continuing to creep down. Blake Neck, meanwhile, going for his first pit stop, and it looks like he decided to go for a fuel-only stop there. 33.1 seconds in the box. Hop, Harper, and Robertson are now in the lane. It looks like a long stop for Sam Harper. He is taking tyres.
Yep, so there's that different strategy coming out once again as we check back in with our race leaders. Traffic for Heures at the end of the Porsche curves. That's completely bottled his run here. Northway's going to go around that same car here. Oh, no! Oh! Northway, there's been contact with the GT car in the mirror there. And, well, that wasn't on Northway, I don't think, to be honest. It looked like he gave plenty of space to the inside, and the GT car has spun out. And who was that there? It was... I can't see them, unfortunately.
It was Ryan Mulder.
Ryan Mulder, there's your answer. So watch this for Mulder here. So through the curves they come, and then there's Heures. So around the outside of the first stage he goes. Northway goes around, leaves plenty of space, but then come together in the middle a little bit, perhaps. You could say the BMW did look a little bit loose when I was watching and chasing Northway's perspective of the whole incident. And then, unfortunately, it comes undone. So watch here through the corner. So Northway out wide, and then you can see here that BMW comes off the white line as Northway comes down, and they meet in the middle with the BMW coming off worse for wear, which is a little surprising given the BMW's reputation as the big boy M8.
Oh yes, it's an absolute brick, that M8, compared to the other GT machinery, and especially the prototypes as well. Well, the gap for the lead in LMP1 is now under a second. It doesn't look like Northway picked up much damage there from that contact with Mulder. He is still continuing at a reasonable pace, but Heures almost running into the back of Mulder has really cost him a lot now, as they make their way past Josh Robertson, I believe, is that driver they're making their way past now. So Northway switching over to the left line very early, and that's something that you'll see a lot of drivers doing at Le Mans, because this being a public road, French National Highway, there's actually quite a pronounced crown in the middle of the road. So the sooner you can get over to the left side, and if you do it at a specific spot, the better. Heures having to go a bit wide here to make his way past another BMW M8. And that's going to bring Northway back into contention ever so slightly. The car they made their way past was Qi Wang, who is currently running in third in the GTE class. And in terms of the GTE class, Blake Neck's lead has ballooned out to 40 seconds. It's a fantastic performance there from Blake Neck. But Northway, we're looking over the wheel arch, continuing to chase down Heures as they make their way down to Indianapolis.
Gap is now a quarter of a second. Here comes Northway. He's on I reckon he's on the hybrid boost here, because here he comes closing the gap at a rate of knots out of the Mulsanne corner, and he's alongside in the head in Indianapolis. Race lead back in the hands of the number 46 Audi as they come through the turn here. And well, does Heures have any response? He doesn't. No hybrid through here, of course. You save it for the exit of Arnage. And then on the way out of the corner, that's like Northway's dumping a little bit more hybrid. No, he dumped a little more initially. Here comes Heures, though, with the return, it would seem. So a little bit vulnerable. So the back and the fourth begins once more for these two up to the Porsche curve, side by side with Heures getting his nose ahead and slots in front through the first part of the Porsche curves here this time by.
Oh, did you see Northway catch the grass there on the run into the Porsche curves? That was very close to disaster there for Robert. Does have a little bit more speed through the corners there, and oh wow, Heures dumping a bit more hybrid there on the exit of the Porsche curves as well through Corvette. So it's always fascinating watching an LMP1 battle like this, especially between the two different cars. They make their hybrid power in different places around the lap, and you'll see them go for moves at certain places to try and keep their position. But Northway is right with Heures now. It looked like a bit more hybrid deployment on the run across the start-finish straight. For now, though, Heures, I think, might be saving a bit more of his hybrid for the run onto the Mulsanne, trying his best to keep Robert Northway behind.
If he can open up the gap and minimise the benefit of the slipstream, of course, that would be pretty beneficial for Heures. But at the same time, maybe it's better off just giving up a little bit of time here in the first or second part of the straightaway, and then being able to reply later in the lap when it gets a little bit, well, before it gets a little bit more twisty. So down the first part of the Mulsanne we come, and well, Northway's already coming in at about 10 kilometers an hour faster. 352 for Northway in the slipstream. Yeah, right on 10k an hour faster, but he doesn't get alongside before the Daytona chicane here, so he tucks back in under brakes and is going to have to try again. But, well, that's a good demonstration of slipstream, I'd say, more than hybrid. And looks like Heures able to deploy a bit more out of the Daytona chicane. So Northway's going to have to time it for a run in the second or third part of this straight. Well, not the second part, pardon me. This is the second part of the straight. It's going to be the third part of this straight, or the run out of the Mulsanne corner in a little bit of time. They've got some traffic ahead, but the first car we're going to come across is the Sportsman LMP1 of James Catchpole. No, make that now the GTE of Corey Horter, as we watch back to Joshua Robertson, who's racing with Sam Harper for 4th in class. And just out of the Daytona chicane there, Harper has gotten through that time by, but Robertson's been doing a good job to keep his nose clean and challenge these pro class drivers in the GTE field here tonight.
Well, we've just gone past an hour complete in this race, so we can do a little rundown of the top 5 in each class. Thomas Heures and Robert Northway, as you can see, battling for the lead in the LMP1 class. Daniel Stevens holding on to 3rd, about 26 seconds behind them, with David Nichols and Gavin Barber fighting for 4th and 5th. Barber fighting more with Shane Bowen at the moment. Bowen's still in the tow of Gavin Barber's Porsche. In the GTE class, it's a fantastic lead for Blake Neck. Jaden Hopp has made his way into 2nd once again. Qi Wang holding on to the 3rd spot in the GTE class. And as we just saw, a battle between Sam Harper and Josh Robertson for 4th and 5th. Fantastic battling that's been going on so far here in the 2.4 hours in the French countryside, part of the Majors International region. We hope you've been enjoying the broadcast so far. We've certainly been enjoying all of the action that's been going on here. But have a look at Robert Northway and Thomas Heures. They are closer than ever, and they've got some traffic in their own class to contend with pretty shortly. Corey Horter trying to make his way past, that looks like Blake Neck, that he's just made his way past there. Into the Ford chicane they go, and Hinsley's been held up slightly. How easy is Horter going to make this for them? Looks like quite easy. He lifts out across the start-finish stretch, lets our leaders go, and the battle resumes.
The back and the forth between these two guys at the front of the field has been fantastic, but we'll check in with them in another time soon, because that battle for 5th has also been continuing to carry on. Once again, Gavin Barber and Shane Bowen have been inseparable, it seems, for about the past 7 or 8 laps of this fuel run, and you can see here it's exactly the same situation. The Porsche of Barber leads the Audi of Bowen, much like Heures leads Northway for the time being, as onto the lane comes David Nichols out of 4th place. So second pit stop for him here at the end of lap number 19 is a little bit early from what it seems, but
There we go. Trade for the lead. Robert Northway makes his way past Thomas Heures. Hinsley almost going a bit deep under brakes there into the first of the Mulsanne chicanes at Daytona, but Robert Northway now dumping all of that hybrid out of the chicane, but you can see Hinsley already starting to come back at him. A little bit more deployment there for the Porsche. These two cars are in 2 different subclasses of hybrid deployment. The way the ACO set up these LMP1 regulations is you have to deploy a certain amount of power around a lap of the Circuit de la Sarthe. The Audi has a maximum deployment of 6 megajoules. The Porsche, meanwhile, has a maximum output of 8 megajoules across the lap. So you would think that that means the Porsche would be faster, but no. It definitely makes the hybrid power a little bit different, and it means that the cars can battle with each other fantastically, as they have been. Northway going a little bit deep there into Mulsanne, and they've got the 021 now to contend with. That's going to be
James Catchpole.
James Catchpole, indeed. He's running a bit far down the field there in 9th place, and Hinsley already on the headlight flash to say, please let us go. Catchpole lets Northway go into Indianapolis, but he's not going to lift out for Thomas Heures.
That's a little bit interesting there. Catchpole was running 9th outright, has now just gone down a lap. As Northway locks it up into Arnage there ahead of us. Oh, another opportune moment there for one of these cars through the slower turns here at Le Mans. And oh boy, able to keep it gathered together there and not have any dramas. But here comes Hinsley up the inside for the Porsche curves. And A little bit of chatter there on the radio between Northway and Catchpole as Northway tries to hang around the outside at the first part of the Porsche curves, but he has to concede to Heures. So race lead. Oh no, spinning GTE car in front of the two of them.
Easy, boys. Looks like the GTE kept it out. That was one of the Kinetic Avatar Porsches. Oh, goodness gracious. That was huge there. Who is that? It's Matt Chalker, who's running a bit far down the order there in the GTE class, 16th place. That was so close there. Let's check it out thanks to our friends at Virtual Racing School. So what on earth happened to Chalker here on the run into the karting corner? Looks like he just got loose on the way in, and that would have been an absolute heart attack moment for our LMP1 leaders, and it seems that Catchpole had to take a bit of avoiding action there and got spun out himself.
Yeah, he spooked himself there, but yeah, just unloading the rear end of this Porsche into the first part of karting corner. Thankfully, locks it up and slides it across, and it allows Northway and Heures through, but Catchpole spooks his own car, locking it up, and whoa, look at that there. That was one of our other cars going through. I believe that was a car that was one of our prototypes that was down a lap, perhaps, because I don't think Dan Stevens was close enough to have arrived on the scene in time for that one there. As we head back to live pitches and continue to track this fight for the race lead. 4/10 was the gap a moment ago, but it's now down to basically nothing. I'm seeing a tenth in it at the moment as we approach the first chicane again here at Daytona, but, well, Northway going to try and line up the exit here. A little bit more understeer, it seems, through the middle of the turn there, Reese, for that Audi in Northway's hands. Whether that's just mechanical or aerodynamically induced, perhaps, I'll be curious to know perhaps later on. Hopefully get a chance to talk to these guys later on, but it looks like that's allowed Heures to break away a fraction in this middle part of the Mulsanne straight, and Northway tries to set up a better run here, and that looks a little bit better for the Audi through the second of the chicane. So on to the final part of the Mulsanne we go. Down to the Mulsanne corner we head, and Northway is closing steadily, and he's going for it up the inside. He looks, and Heures rolls out to let him through here before we get through the kink in the corner proper. So switch back for the race lead once again. And then both these drivers look to be deploying aggressively off the corner on the way to Indianapolis this time again.
That they do, and Heures would have had a little bit of an advantage there. A little bit more time spent on the brakes means a little bit more power generated for his Porsche, and he's translated that into a nice run on the way up to Indianapolis. Meanwhile, Barber and Bowen, they're still going at it. This has been a very close battle between these two for the majority of this race, and don't forget, this is for 4th place in the LMP1 class. Some big points on offer for these two.
Yeah, it's been impressive to watch. They've been keeping at it all this time and keeping their noses clean and out of trouble here. And, well, not seeing as much movement between these two guys. They're maybe Bowen there opting to be a bit conservative and happy to let Barber drag him around the Circuit de la Sarre here, which certainly might be, well, hopefully, and you think in Bowen's case, be doing that Audi a bit of fuel favours and eke out every extra bit of fuel you can. And so in Indianapolis they come. You can see they're a little bit faster on the way in for Bowen, and opting to be a little bit more aggressive out of Indianapolis. That time is side by side into the Ford chicanes with Heures back into the race lead again. These guys seem to be trading places every chance they can get around here, Reese, and it means that, well, if we don't keep our eyes on them the entire time, it seems we're going to miss out on one of these passes sooner or later.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of drawing our attention to that battle just a few moments ago because they were making their way past Costa Karaklajic in the Porsche curves, and they were right bumper to bumper. But Heures just riding the brakes a little bit more, I would presume, just got himself a little bit of extra hybrid power to use, and they're making their way through now on another GTE on the way up to Tetra Rouge. It is Nick McMillan, a Northway with a slightly narrow exit into Tetra Rouge. That is going to ruin his exit. Heures going to extend that lead just a little bit. Oh, this is a very intriguing battle between these two. It's pretty fantastic to see not only how interesting the battle has been, but how clean it's been as well. As into the pits is Daniel Stevens. Once again, he's a bit offset in terms of strategy compared to his fellow LMP1 competitors. And it looks like 11 laps is the stint length that Stevens is going for in that Porsche.
Yeah, you wonder how that goes here, because it's now 2 stops and just over an hour of the race complete. which means that, well, at this rate, he's going to have to make another stop at minimum to get home. He might even have to try and make stretch it or splash to the end. Just wondering the strategy for Stevens here, potentially opening stints being fast and furious with 10-lap runs potentially out of him, and then change it over for longer runs. But, well, we'll have to wait and see. He's on lap 22, so 11 laps complete that time by for him. And he got 10 laps out of his first tank. So 10-11 from 10 laps and then 11 laps for the number 3 car that was running in third place. But he will have to stretch a bit further, I would have thought, to make it home here to the end. We'll have to wait and see as the clock ticks on. And back to GTE class, Reese. Here's our one gap that we've battle we can say that we've got on our hands at this stage. It's the fight for 8th place in the class. Jonathan Bain running there as one of our pro class entries, and Ryan Mulder with another prototype car coming through. That's Adam Preston in the 91 entry there. Has just broken that battle pack apart temporarily. I was going to say this was our one battle amongst the GT cars that was within a second, but just behind them actually is we've got another battle starting to form between Phil Otto and Dave Trevethan for 10th place in that class there between our two sportsman entries. They're also fighting for what will be 4th place in sportsman amongst the GT drivers, so that will be one to keep our eyes on later on in this race. Back to the front of the field though, and our race leaders are still for them at this stage.
Yeah, Hinsey having to back off through the exit of the Porsche curves, making their way past Jake Fox. Has given Robert Northway a slight advantage, but you see once again Hinsey dumping the hybrid on the exit of Corvette and working himself nicely back out to another small gap over Robert Northway. So be the 22nd lap completed, and looks like Robert Northway got a slowdown at the chicane there as Barber and Bowen continue to battle. Northway has lost a lot of time now to Thomas Hins. Looks like it's ballooned out to over 2 seconds. He went a bit too far over the curbs at the chicane.
Must have, although in saying that, I haven't seen. Must have cleared the slowdown straight away.
Would it be? Oh dear, further
Trouble
problems
for Julian
for Mookie.
Yep, that's down at Daytona, or is that Porsche curves? We'll have to wait and see here. Thanks to the replay from Virtual Racing School. So definitely one of the Mulsanne chicanes. Heading up towards what looks like Daytona. Joshua Robertson there, I believe. Yeah, right side of screen. So Mookie under the brakes. Oh, he's just gone in way too hot, and round he goes. And actually keeps it out of the tyres, indeed. That is, I guess, one small benefit there for him as he continues on. But now, unfortunately, almost another full lap down here as Gavin Barber, Shane Bowen shadow each other down onto the lane here. You can bring another pit stop in after 22 laps of racing for our LMP1 cars.
Indeed. So let's see how the pit stop time is between those two. Back to the lead. They're coming up on the fight between Trevethan and Otto here in the two Porsches. One for Kinetic Avatar Racing of Phil Otto. It looks like our LMP1 leaders making their way past without much fuss, but have a look at Robertson and Sheridan now. Robertson could be looking at losing 5th place here to Alexander Sheridan. They got Julian Mookie just up ahead of them. He's made his way back past that fight, but through goes the Kinetic Avatar Porsche, and Robertson back down to 6th now in the GTE class. Sheridan finally making up a position on where he started.
Yes, that's good progress there from the 256 machine there amongst the GT cars. Although she's just dropped off the back of Sheridan there out of Arnage. And here comes Northway up the inside of Hins. They're also dealing with one of the GTE cars. Northway back to the race lead. It's Ryan Maldonado navigating their way through as Jonathan Bain, the next one up on the chopping block. Northway's going to sneak up the inside before Arnage here. And Northway is going to get a small gap here, but how much higher does Thomas Hins have left in that car? The answer is, I reckon, a fair bit, because he immediately dumps a whole bunch of it to keep that gap in check as they make their way up to the Porsche curves. Once again, these guys have been going at it so hard. They're now lapping in the 3-minute 14s and 3-minute 16s, these two.
Yeah, having to make their way past all of that traffic. It's certainly not looking good on the timesheets for either of them, but they are still holding on to a fantastic lead by over a minute over the next competitor in the LMP1 class, being Daniel Stevens. While we were looking at that, as they come into the lane, there was also a change for position between Trevethan and Otto. So Dave Trevethan has now made his way up into the top 10 in GTE, and they've got an LMP1 to contend with there. Connor Brown making his way past as we check in once again with, looks like Josh Thomas trying to catch up here to Simon Francis for 11th place. Robert Northway, and oh dear, mistake for Thomas at the Mulsanne corner. Fortunately, no other cars involved in that one, but the rear end just getting loose there for the Kinetic Avatar Audi. Big shame as our leaders now into the pit boxes. This is going to be a battle of the pit crews here for Northway and Heures. There was a big gap between them last time they came into the lane, but now, oh goodness, the lead was absolutely diminished on the way into the pits. They're joined in the pits by Connor Brown and James Catchpole, running 9th and 10th in class. Who is going to win the battle out of pit road? Looks like a 22.3 second stop for Northway and a 23-second stop for Heures, and Heures was 2 seconds slower than Northway, cone to cone. So Northway pretty safe in the lead now. Have a look at the gap that he's already got. That's actually quite substantial. It's over 3 seconds.
I have to say I was very impressed by that, because from my perspective, watching these two guys come into the lane, it looked like Heures was far more confident with knowing his brake marker to hit the pit speed limiter on entry there. And, well, that looks to maybe have not been the case, or at least Northway slightly better out of the box and then able to get a good exit there with clean track. Unfortunately, whilst we were talking about James Catchpole in the background shot, he's picked up a black flag on pit entry, which must have been for speeding or potentially cutting the course and getting an unsafe entry there. So he's stuck in the lane with a lengthier stop than he would like, and down the order, he tumbles outside the top 10 in LMP1 there for the 021.
Yeah, big shame there for Catchpole. Well, the battling continues here in the GTE class, 8th and 9th, Mulder versus Bain. You'll be able to keep up with the action on side by side as we go to a little break here on SimSpeed TV. You're watching the Majors International Region, the 2.4 hours through the French countryside.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Well, folks, hope you've enjoyed the action as we've continued on here with the Majors Series 2.4 at Le Mans here for the international region. And hope you've stayed with us here after that short break for us at SimSpeed TV. My name is Daniel Yeaman, and Reese Gardner's alongside me in the commentary box, although we'll have Reese back shortly, and Jay Kennedy on production, continuing as always to cover this race for you here tonight. With almost an hour left on the clock, we check in with our GTE drivers, and riding on board with the number 073 of Qi Wang, currently the leader of your sportsman class drivers in the GTE group here as he tries to chase down 6th place in class, currently held there by Dwayne Burns in the number 19 Porsche 911 RSR. Well, it's now been over an hour since we started this race, and as you can see, the clock creeps down towards 1 hour to go for these drivers. Oh, that was very loose for Wang there, and oh boy, that could have been all kinds of nasty if he wasn't careful there, but looks like he got away with that one, so nothing too drastic in that case. So bit of a rundown on where the race stands currently in LMP1 real quick. It's a two-way fight between Robert Northway and Thomas Hinz, or at least it was, I should say, because after the most recent pit stop only 2 laps ago for these cars, Northway has been able to start gapping Thomas Hinz quite substantially there indeed. Dan Stevens currently holds P3 in that number 3 machine, all a little bit lonesome at the moment for him, but he's doing a nice solid job there as Gavin Barber, his teammate, and in 4th place. And then David Nichols was the next car on track, but he's currently down on the pit lane. So there you go, 5 pro class LMP1s leading that field there. Nichols leading the sportsman division of the LMP1s for the time being. And then back in the GTE class, well, it's been the Blake Next show all race long. We haven't really talked about him all that much, to be honest, because he's been that far out in front this entire race. His gap to P2, 56.5 seconds. Well, I'm rejoined by Reese Gardner in the comms box, and well, Reese, just approaching that 1 hour clock once again, and pardon me there, sorry. The fighting continuing up and down the field here as we check in with more of our GTE class drivers. Sam Harper also leading the Pro Class Championship overall for the Majors Series. Now looking in a better spot here with 3rd place in class. Joshua Robertson there, 5th place outright in GTE, also leading the Sportsman division here tonight, which certainly doing him a world of good, because the Sportsman Major Series leader is Julian Mookie, and unfortunately he's had a world of hurt tonight in the LMP1 division for him. As oh no, a little spin there for Robertson at the Mulsanne corners. We're talking about him there. He's got to take a moment to get that car fixed up. Oh, drives it into the fence. That's not going to do the front end any favours.
No, certainly not. Seems to me Robertson, the rear end just got loose for him on the entry as we check it out on the VRS replay. On the way into the corner, the car looked nice and stable, but as you'll see, once he actually turns in for the corner, might have been slightly offline due to Daniel Stevens making his way past. There's the rear end breaking free, and Robertson gets on the brakes there. unfortunately sprawled on the racing line. The reason we flicked to Julian Mucki was this. Coming into the pits there is Mucki, and actually overshooting one of the chicanes on the way into the pit lane. As you said, Dan, Mucki having a bit of a nightmare here. He didn't get off to the best of starts because he was gridded with the GTE class, but he's completed that pit stop, his third of the race, and currently running 13th out of 15 cars. All of our LMPs still running, but a few of them more than a lap down. It seems to me like Robert Northwaite has been putting in the hard yards on this stint. He has extended that gap to Thomas Heures to over 5 seconds now. Heures just trying his best here to get the car home. And don't forget that Northwaite is second in the Pro Drivers' Championship. Heures is in third. So there's a good opportunity here for Northwaite to gap Heures a little bit there in those standings. But for the overall Pro Drivers' Championship lead, I think Sam Harper could potentially still hold on to it because he's still running in third in GTE right now.
Yeah, had a small advantage coming into the race tonight to the tune of, pardon me while I go and find it, 41 points was his advantage going into things this evening. So, unfortunately, not super familiar with the Majors points scheme here, but a third place in that GTE class, whilst his closest rivals in that overall championship, indeed, as we said there, Reese, are first and second on the road in LMP1, should mean that Sam's damage limitations there are doing a decent enough job, at least for this part of the season. But we'll have to see how things play out afterwards as we watch that number 52 machine of Harper making his way down the straight towards the Mulsanne corner, towards the first of the chicanes, the Daytona chicane here on the Mulsanne straight. And yeah, he's done a good job here, Harper. Looked a little bit rough and ragged in the opening stint of the race, but it looks like calmed things down a little bit. He did opt to take tyres at his last pit stop, and that might just be telling there with regards to car balance and performance for him at this phase of the race. But, well, in saying that, still no one can catch Blake Neck, and he continues to increase his lead on everyone else ahead of him. Jaden Hopp is up to second place, but, well, 1.5 seconds slower on the last lap between Neck and Hopp there as we check in with another one of our drivers who's showing great promise at the opening phase of the race. Pardon me, where is the man? He's way down the order. Hayden Mcchesney is his full name there, the 66 Sportsman class entry. And unfortunately, well, showing great promise, Reese, but maybe a little bit too aggressive in some stages, and then a massive pile-up for him, which saw lots of damage for him, followed by what I found out on lap 9 for him was a mistake that saw him drive the car hard into the wall at the Porsche curves, which earned a mechanical black flag and another trip down the lane for him to fix it up.
Yeah, so Mcchesney running last in LMP1 and 22nd overall as we check out Dwayne Burns still carrying that damage that he sustained earlier to the right side of his rear wing. He's been battling with Joshua Robertson all race here, and Robertson not that far ahead of him to the tune of a couple of seconds. Robertson, of course, now carrying some damage himself thanks to that spin that we caught just a little earlier. So, 2 walking wounded here in the GTE class, battling now for a top 5 place. And they're going to have to make way for an LMP1 pretty soon here. That is Hayden Mcchesney making his way through on the 2 of them, or one of them at the very least. Looks like he'll be able to clear Robertson by the time they get to Indianapolis, or will he? Oh, they're going to be side by side on the way in, but it looks like Mcchesney does clear that. Battle going on here between Jonathan Bain and Ryan Mulder. Mulder, of course, suffering a spin after coming together with Robert Northway as he battled with Thomas Heures for the overall lead of the race. But Mulder still up 10 places from where he started. It's been a brilliant, consistent race for the BMW driver, and he is now threatening for a top 7.
Yep, that is a very good point to make indeed. 33rd place start outright, which was the last car on the grid, was this 272 entry. Locks the rears into our Nash as we jumped on board with him there, and just able to keep the wheel straight enough to keep the car going straight into the corner and not lose all that much time to Jonathan Bain ahead of him there impressively. So, well, yeah, that could have gone wrong there, but no, he keeps it on the straight and narrow for now, it seems, up into the Porsche curves, and they've got another LMP1 car approaching them from behind. That will be the number 11 of Simon Francis, who's running up in 11th place, or the number 9 in this race as he makes his way past at the Corvette curves and not using a lot of hybrid here when he probably needs to use some hybrid if he wants to clear Jonathan Bain before the Ford chicanes. Oh, luckily for him, Jonathan Bain is heading down pit lane this time by.
And it looks like Ryan Mulder staying out there. He's going to go a lap longer at least than Jonathan Bain on this stint. And more drivers will be making their way into the lane. It looks like Catchpole was in there as well. So the gap between Northway and Heures for the overall race lead, it stayed stable at about 5.5 seconds. But Thomas Heures was faster than Robert Northway on the last lap by about a second. So looks like the pace is coming back now for the number 53 Porsche 919, and he makes his way past there the GTE NRG Forge machine. That would be Stuart Elder, who is running way down the order at the moment in the GTE class. It's going to be 29th place overall and 14th in class for Elder. He's not had a very good race, has Stuart, but still, crucially, he's keeping it circulating, which is the main thing you got to aim for at a race like this. Xiang Wang comes in, and it looks like Jonathan Bain taking tyres here for his pit stop. It's going to be a little bit longer, and it looks like Wang is going for tyres as well. So we had a few of our GTE runners make their way into the pits for tyres on the first stop, but when it comes to the second stop, it certainly looks like the majority of the field going for that fresh set of rubber. It'll be interesting to see how all of those battles work out as the lap completes once again for Thomas Heures. What time does he set this time? A 13.5. That is a second slower than Robert Northway. Northway, I think, having a relatively traffic-free lap. It looks like both of our LMP1 leaders have some nice clear air ahead of them now.
Yeah, the back and forth between these two, when they've got clean air, seems to be all about when you catch traffic. Look at that there. The last 3 laps between these drives, 1.6 seconds in favour of Northway. Then it swings back a second in favour of Heures. And then another second back in favour of Northway. Oh, that was the grass into Tetra Rouge for Heures.
Oh, goodness, well held, I have to say. Goodness gracious, that was almost complete disaster for Thomas Heures. You catch the grass on the way into Tetra Rouge, one of the fastest corners on the circuit, and there's only one way that's going to go. But man, let's see what this looked like from on board with Hinsey. The gap has ballooned out now to about 7 and a bit seconds. So Thomas, 4th gear through the S's, but running just a little bit far onto the grass here on the way in. Whoop! That was brilliant reactions there, and he managed to avoid the slowdown by getting onto the track before the end of the curb.
Live pictures with the number 53 machine, and yeah, well, that was a serious Code Brown moment. Now, why on earth am I seeing Blake Neck game as pinging at 500 milliseconds?
Oh,
that's potentially concerning. It's come back down again. So, looks like your race leader in GTE, who has now officially got that gap up and over 1 minute to Jaden Hopp in second place. Well, for a second I was a bit worried that we might have some issues there with the race leader all of a sudden vanishing out of thin air. He's picked up a slowdown at the first chicane, has Blake Neck, but he'll be able to clear that one without too much fuss. As we jump back to Dwayne Burns and Joshua Robertson, pardon me, as they make their way out of the Porsche curves and towards the Corvette curves, and certainly there, first place in pre-qualifying for the international region here was Burns, but hasn't quite had that race pace that he would have liked, and he obviously entangled on with some damage that he's been managing this part of the race. Through the final part of the 4 chicanes, these two come, and looks all fairly line astern here. As they come across the line, lap times come in at 3 minutes 50 for Robertson, 3:49.8 for Burns. So slightly up on that lap, but we'll be hoping to find a little bit more speed we can. Robertson goes deep, though, at the first chicane there before Dunlop Bridge.
Does indeed, and that's a big slowdown there for Josh Robertson. And Dwayne Burns moves on through into 5th in the GTE class. So Robertson still dealing with a bit of damage on that machine. Unfortunately, coming a little bit of cropper coming into the Dunlop chicane. Let's see if he can find his way back past Burns eventually. I guess the benefit now for Robertson is, with that damage that he got to the front end of his car, he can take advantage of the slipstream here behind Burns and get a little bit of that straight line speed back. Have a look at the gap for LMP1 meanwhile. It has gone way down. Northway and Heures now only separated by a second.
Yeah, I just looked up to my timing screen to see that all of a sudden, there was some traffic at Arnage, but it was one GT car for Northway, and well, you know, he caught that car on corner exit.
Oh,
So
Northway actually went straight on at the first of the Mulsanne chicanes. There was a big GTE incident next to him. That's the reason why he ended up missing the corner. It looked like a problem for Corey Horter on the way in.
Yep.
Yeah, indeed. If we can get a replay of that,
oh yeah,
very
that's
good.
that'll be definitely worth watching as we stay with the live pictures. We'll have that replay for you shortly. As well, that's not what Northway needed after doing a fantastic job to gap Thomas Heures in that opening phase. Well, this stint, I should say, since last pitting. And here comes that replay thanks to Virtual Racing School once more. So Corey Horter coming through. Oh, that's the Porsche Heures. So we need to jump forward to the Mulsanne straight. So unfortunately, that's not quite worked out there. But the long and short of it is, folks, for those since you will have missed it, is Horter unfortunately found the right side Armco heading into the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight away. As we see here, Jake Fox, I believe, on the pit lane just now. Let's see here. No, it's a little bit behind. So unfortunately, we've jumped into another replay segment here. And that might be because of where he was on track when we're looking for the replay here. But we'll hopefully get back to the live pictures in a moment here. But going back to this, the summary of what happened, basically, it was on the first part of the Mulsanne before the chicane. Corey Horter finds the fence, which is on the left side of the picture, and then speared across the track. Northway had nowhere to go but the escape road between the tyre bundles there, and that was a lot of time lost indeed for him. And now that's why Heures sits at 1 second. But you can see here Northway going to use all the slipstream he can get, but he's not opting to burn a lot of hybrid here as they approach Indianapolis. You want to try and use these guys as traffic if possible.
Yep, can Northway make his way past here? Looks like he will indeed. Mcchesney making room for him there, and Heures manages to move past as well. So only separated by one car now. The gap at about 2 seconds as they make their way into Arnage once more. Oh goodness, this has been a very intriguing race here. 30 laps in and coming up to 45 minutes to go. Robertson and Burns still going at it here for 5th place. Looks to me like Robertson has found his way back past Dwayne Burns. So, oh, there we go. Burns into the pits now for what should be his second stop. Managed to go 13 laps on that stint. Some very good fuel saving there from Dwayne.
That is a good marker to make indeed. And, well, be curious to see guys like Sam Harper, they're in a good spot. And along with Alexander Sheridan up the road, they are the two. Oh, no, trouble for Chi Sung Wang. Oh dear, the number 073, having completed what he would have hoped would have been his final pit stop, has found trouble on the Mulsanne straight. We're going to have to find out why, thanks to the replay. Oh,
wow.
Already spinning out of the second chicane. There's an LMP1 car that's just gone by. Are we possibly going to have an incident here between two classes of car here? You hope not, but well, everything seems to paint a picture towards it. So out of the corner we come, and oh, LMP1 may be going for a gap that wasn't really there. That particular angle didn't look too favourable. Hopefully we get a chance to see perhaps another outboard shot to confirm. So on board with the LMP1 in question, Connor Brown, the 51, and well, yeah, I would say that gap wasn't really the option. The better choice would have been to pull left and go round that way. There was a bit of chatter on the radio after that one there, but certainly not what either driver would have wanted there. And for Wang, he had been running towards the front, and oh dear, that just looks rather nasty there from that trackside camera.
That it does. That's a big shame there for Chi Sung Wang, especially after the early form that he showed in this race. And Connor Brown now running a bit down the order here in the LMP1 class, currently 9th place for the number 51. And will he bring it into the pits? No, looks like he's going to continue. Didn't seem to suffer too much damage from that. It was Wang that definitely came off worse in that fight. Big contact with the wall. Well, he's going to keep going. And he's got a big gap to Costa Karaklajic just up ahead of him. It's going to be very difficult there for Wang to make up that 36-second gap. And don't forget, he's only fresh out of the pits. He took tyres on that stop. In fact, he was a little bit longer than pretty much everyone else, to the tune of about 30 seconds through the lane. He did take tyres on that one, and unfortunately, any benefit that he would have gotten from those fresh tyres has been erased.
Yeah, that's certainly not what he would have liked to see, and I think it's a very curious thing to see drivers taking tyres at this part of the race. I would have thought, in my opinion at least, as he brings the car down onto lane, so he's going to have to get that thing fixed up. No mechanical black flag, thankfully, but damaged enough, in his opinion here, to warrant taking a fast repair, I would presume. Oh, no, we're told he's already used his fast repair tonight, so he's going to have to sit that car in the box for quite some time. But back to our race leaders in LMP1, though, Reese, and the gap has continued to ebb and flow. It's back up towards 3 seconds here on our overlays, although I'm apparently reading it as 2.3 as they head up to the Porsche curve. So a bit back and forth here, but these guys have got one more stop to give us here tonight. Now, they haven't taken tyres at any point during this race. It has continued to progress towards the night time, and the track has cooled marginally. What are the odds, do we think, on seeing these guys just do it on the same set of tyres they started this race with here? Oh, no, meanwhile, trouble for the 272 there. Ryan Mulder, after racing with Dwayne Burns, he says, just lost it in too deep in Arnage. So, unfortunately, entirely self-inflicted.
That's a big shame there for Mulder. It was a bit offline going into Indianapolis as well, so we'll see what it looked like from the onboard perspective. Just, going a bit too deep. The rear's lock, and around he goes.
I think we've already seen, I think it actually was Mulder, of all people, actually already have a moment at Arnage previously. He was able to keep it together as we returned to live pitches. That was a little deep through the Porsche curves, but more drivers into the lane. Alexander Sheridan is joined by Joshua Robertson. There's Chi-Sun Wang there in the middle of them, unfortunately. So Sheridan has taken tyres already in this race. He should be good to go to the end here on a fuel-only strategy. The question is, will we see Robertson up on the jacks at some point? Whether he'll be good to go. Back to our LMP1 leaders again, though, racing the gap has increased to over 3 seconds between Northway and Heures.
Yeah, Northway's doing a good job here as the race enters its final 3/4 of an hour. And it looks to me like Hinsey, a bit slower on the last couple of laps. Traffic might have had something to do with that. Northway definitely is in control of this race at the moment, though they do have a bit of traffic coming up on them now. Should be a nice easy pass down the straight for Robert Northway. But now the challenge for Hins is being able to manage the hybrids, save it up for those big blasts onto the straights, and try his best to make up some time on Robert Northway and hope that the Audi driver falls into traffic. But looks like it's going to be a little bit longer to go before they get into a good amount of traffic. Northway is already by the GTE, and that GTE in question is Sam Harper, who still holds on to third place in the lower class here.
Yep, so important there for Harper, managing his championship overall. Pardon me, I should say the Pro Class Championship, which these drivers are all a part of, as they make their way up towards Indianapolis. There's a bit more traffic for Northway on the run here. He might just get caught by one of the Porsches up ahead. It's Matt Chalker, one of our sportsman entries from Kinetic Avatar here, as he approaches Indianapolis, and indeed he's going to have to lay in line. Hinzo has got his own traffic in the form of Jaden Hopp, who is running second in that GTE class. He's going to have to go around him here before Arnage, as does Northway with respect to Chalker. So all ends up being relatively uneventful there, just a little bit compromised on pure speed there perhaps. But you can see there, that's the gap between Hopp and, pardon me, actually, Jaden Hopp is second and Harper is in third. The gap currently 5 seconds between the two of them, but they've also got the tragic tale of Hayden Mcchesney, who's currently behind them, both on track quite literally in the current moment, but also for position. This is going to be a bit dicey here. Mcchesney comes through on Harper through the first part of the Porsche curves, and Harper, well, he's kept that car clean all race long, and you can probably see there, well, that LMP1 was looking a bit bent and busted, and well, if an LMP1 is passing you for position outright with 40 minutes to go, you know you probably want to just steer clear of them, perhaps, as one of our cars is down onto the lane, and that would be... Is that Jaden Hopp? Are you coming into the lane? No, Jaden Hopp has stayed out. It's Matt Chalker bringing his Porsche down into the pits from 30th place. Outright 15th in class for him.
Still up a place from where he started, Costa Karalagic there with a bit of damage to his front right. There's obviously been a coming together with either another car or the wall for him. Costa holding on to that 14th spot as Harper brings it into the lane. Oh dear, further problems there for Julian Mucki. And it looks like he lost it on the way into the Ford chicanes. But the sun is now below the horizon here in virtual France. Harper is definitely keeping his pace up here as the track starts to cool down. He's starting to close in on Jaden Hopp for second.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to watch that. In fact, the last lap for Jaden Hopp, 3 minute 54. That was an absolute shocking lap for Harper last time around. Pardon me, Hopp. Not Harper. Harper had a good lap because there's your time difference on screen. You see half a second consistently the past couple laps, and all of a sudden, it was one of Harper's slower laps, but nearly 5 seconds taken out of Hopp on that time around the circuit. So yeah, maybe that Ford GT, we said he was struggling a bit in the early phase of the race. It looked like he was a little bit uncomfortable with the car. Now maybe it's finally coming to him, and this is what he was ready and prepared for as well. Speaking of trouble for Julian Mucki, his car is, it is bent and busted again, and now has the mechanical black flag next to his name for that 39 machine.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
An off-track excursion on the exit of the S's. Oh dear, that's a rather nasty one for him. He's grabbed the curb, exiting the S's. It's hopped the car up and over into the Armco before Tetra Rouge on the outside of the track. As we're actually going to have a quick look at it, thanks to virtual racing. So, no, unfortunately, that's Mucki going through the Porsche and Corvette curves.
We can stay with it. We can catch the first part of that incident
That's
when he
true.
had his off coming out of the Ford chicane. So, see what happened then to Julian Mucki as he makes his way into the chicanes. He keeps it within track limits there, but getting crossed up over the curb. No, actually, a little bit too late in. Managed to keep it out of the wall there, so not too bad. And fortunately, no other cars in the vicinity, so he was able to keep it going nicely. But we'll see in just a couple of corners' time, Dan. He catches that curb and goes for a big old spin into the wall.
Yeah, so all looking relatively fine and dandy here through the first turn and up into the Dunlop chicane. But then, yeah, just at the exit of the S's, turn 7, that's when it all comes undone here. So that's turns 3, 4, and now 5. So, actually, pardon me, it's the exit of turn 6. So watch him here. Runs a little wide on the power, up and over that curb. It does not grip, as you would expect, given how raised it is. And the left side of that car was a sad, sad tale of woe for the 39 there as we return to the live pictures.
Yeah, so Mucki's going to have to bring that one into the pits at the end of the lap there, and I think Mucki might have already used his fast repairs, and we get confirmation of that from our director Jay Kennedy, so it's going to be a long time spent in the pits there for Mr. Mucki. It's been an absolute horror night of racing for him. Hopefully things start going his way at the next round of the championship. Robert Northway, meanwhile, the gap for the lead in LMP1 has ballooned back out to about 5-ish seconds between Northway and Heures. Coming up on a little bit more traffic, this would be Stuart Elder, I believe, in the sportsman class. And things have gone really well for Robert Northway here. Qualified fastest, and he's keeping the race management nicely as Jaden Hopp comes into the pit lane. Looks like Sam Harper joining him in there as well. But don't forget, we saw that Harper was closing in on Hopp earlier. So this could be very significant for the battle for second in GT.
I think it will indeed. Gavin Barber follows them down into the pits from third place in the LMP1 cars. That will be his final stop of the night. Daniel Stevens currently running in 5th. He's actually going to pass these guys by, and he actually will carry on here. And the answer is because he's already taken his final pit stop of the race. So thank you very much for that information there. So he's the first driver, we believe, who should be home to the end here on fuel. And we're looking at his pit stop time, 23 seconds for him. So looking like it's just been fuel all the way as Mucki has finally gotten his car back to the lane. And, well, honestly, not entirely sure if he'll return to the track. There we see Hop and Harper both out of the lane. No tyres for either car. And, well, I don't remember if Hop has opted for tyres at any point during this race. Harper did at the last pit stop, so he should be in perfect contention here to go completely flat out as the track continues to cool, and that car should have good tyre life underneath it here to the end. And I believe I've been given the answer. No tyres is the answer for Jayden Hop, so maybe a possibility here, even as the track cools down, that the mechanical grip or Jayden Hop up there in second place in GTE class is going to be a issue for him potentially, as we watch Harper here get back up to speed after that pit stop, with Gavin Barber just getting past him there as he also gets up to speed after pitting for the last time this race.
Indeed he does. Well, nowadays in this race, it looks like the stage has been set for the final stint. Northway and Heures still have yet to come into the lane, and I would suspect that now that it's under a typical stint length for LMP1, we should expect Northway in, as goodness gracious, he was making his way past the car there. I'm sorry, I forget who that is, but it was Adrian Stefan. They all come into the pits. So now this is the big thing here for Heures and Northway. Which of them is going to get a faster pit stop? Do either of them take tyres for that final stint? I would suspect probably not. But Robert Northway is going to have to hope that this pit stop is a quick one. He wants to keep that gap over Heures.
Yeah, he's clearly showing good paces. Speaking of drivers pitting from the front of the field, Northway actually had to just move his car slightly in the box. Didn't maybe quite pull it up. We just see there it was Blake Neck, our race leader in GTE, also coming onto the lane. So he's coming in for his final splash of fuel to finish this one off. And now we await the pit stops for our front two. The clock continues to tick upwards here. Past 23 seconds for Northway, 23.4. Heures 22 dead, so nearly a second and a half gained, just stationary there. And as a result, he's going to be about 1.6 faster in the lane. So that's a little bit of advantage, Thomas Heures. He is going to have to work to continue to close that gap down, though, as they return to racing speed here out of the pit lane.
And Heures is going to have to work his way past Adrian Stefan as well, but it looks like Stefan might make it easy for Heures down the Mulsanne straight, considering the gap between them. So the lead in LMP1 remains with Robert Northway. There's a battle on for the top 10 in class, though, with Simon Francis still holding off J.M. Thomas, and Shane Bowen also coming into the pits in the number 7 too, with Thomas now in the slipstream here behind Simon Francis. Francis isn't going to make it easy for him on the way into the Porsche curves, but it is the inside line there for Thomas, and he gets that move done very nicely as we get a good look at the inlet for the airbox of that Audi R18. Meanwhile, that was a pretty easy completed move. Thomas Heures now has made his way past Adrian Stefan and can continue the chase of Robert Northway. He's actually gained even more time there thanks to the slipstream gap up to 2.2 seconds, but Northway, it seemed, got a slightly better exit.
It's cost Heures there about a tenth of a second, but then he actually gains a whole lot of time there in the initial phase, the braking zone of the second chicane. And curious to see if Stefan is staying with these guys here out on track. His car looks undamaged to me there from that perspective. So curious to see. Oh, no, there's a little bit of damage there to the right rear corner. Just let's say his car is undamaged. So Stefan obviously doesn't need to risk anything here, you'd hope, and hopefully just plays the sensible role here. But maybe if he's got good cornering. Oh, there goes Stefan. Almost round.
Well held.
Hangs on just. But that will now detach him from Thomas Heures. So one less thing to worry about in the rear mirror of the number 53 machine there as they head past, I believe that's Stuart Elder.
Yep.
Yes, it is indeed, the 115 Ford GT car. There's your race leader in GTE, Blake Neck, gets his final stop complete, 50 seconds, which means he's actually gone and dropped some tyres on that car for the final stint. So just in case you thought he wasn't fast enough in this race, looks like he's going to go for a couple of absolutely ballistic final laps here as the sun continues to set here in the virtual France.
Yep, still holds on to a 50-second lead over Jayden Hop, and there's a little bit of drama there. They're having to negotiate some GTE traffic for the LMP1 lead. Can Northway hold on to this? It looks like Heures is going to make up some time on him here, and still 2.2 seconds is the gap. Hinsey, I think, actually might be disadvantaged here because he's the one who's having to deal with the traffic. An LMP up ahead of him, having to negotiate that GTE. It's Chaston Teets in the number 88 that is with Thomas Hinz at the moment, and Teets lets off the throttle, lets Hinz go very nicely. But even more traffic now for Robert Northway in the final chicane here. Makes his way past the Porsche of Nick McMillan, who runs down in 9th place in the GTE class, and that gap has just decreased by a little margin there. It's under 2 seconds now between these two drivers. 1.4 seconds the gap, and Hinsey was able to get a very good outlap there.
The traffic giveth, the traffic taketh away, as always in multi-class racing. And well, for a second there, it looked like Hinz had the short end of the stick through the Porsche Heures, but Northway picked up a couple of cars worth of traffic in the opening sector, well, the fourth chicane, sorry, and then the final corners, or probably the opening corners of that lap. The final corners of the last lap, opening corners of this lap. That's what I wanted to try and say, but you can see there, Hinz now in a straightaway. Didn't quite get the best run through the end of the S's and Tetra Rouge because Northway is checking out ever so slightly from him in a straight line with nothing around them at the moment. So this will be a curious lap or two here to see what can these guys do when there's just outside of slipstream range for Hinz, which means he's got to somehow try and find a way to get in to that slipstream and pull himself along here along the straights, whilst Northway is thinking about the clean air he's got to maximise his pace for the next little while. The next car ahead of them is a GTE car, Dave Trevethan, who's currently all by his lonesome heading up towards the Mulsanne corner. They will catch him, I would suspect, then in about, well, they might even get him before the end of the lap. At the rate these LMP1 cars will speed along down the straights in comparison to the GT cars here at this circuit.
Yeah, top speed of about 350 down the Mulsanne straight at full chat for these LMP1 cars, and it makes you wonder what kind of speeds they would be reaching nowadays if they weren't using the chicanes down the Mulsanne straight. They were introduced in 1991 because the FIA ended up putting in restrictions on how long a straight can be at any given circuit. But it's amazing to see that, you know, the pace of development in motorsports shows these cars still reaching top speeds, even on those shortened runs down the Mulsanne, compared to what they used to run when there were no chicanes at all. Robert Northway has had not the best of runs there through Indianapolis, and coming into Arnage, Hinz now is almost within striking distance. There's a problem for one of the Kinetic Avatar Porsches there of Jake Fox, who we've already seen have some issues a few times in this race, and it looks like it happened down at Mulsanne corner. Yeah, a bit of a spin there. The traction control kicked in, and he was not able to recover it.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a rough day for the 08 machine as we check back in with Sam Harper as the championship leader in the Pro Division, and crucially there, that delta to Jaden Hopp is now down to 2.5 seconds. Obviously needs to find a little bit more speed. Maybe not the best run there through Tetra Rouge that time by, but clearly that favourable rubber for him seems to be paying off. A little faster there on the outlap, a little slower on the inlap, so bit of a tit for tat. And also I think there was a slowdown for Hopp on the way through the final couple of turns as we check back in with our race leaders. And there you go, gap almost 1 second between the two, but Northway seemed to have saved up some hybrid there to dump it down the front stretch, or at least dump some of his new deployment, I think it'd be more appropriate to say, because every lap, of course, the deployment allowance resets, and use that to get past that lapped car there, which belonged to James Catchpole, the 021, who's running down in 13th in class as they come onto the Mulsanne straight once more. Gap just over 1 second between our two leaders.
Very close fighting for the LMP1 lead. There's also some battles going on between some of our GTE runners. Nick McMillan only half a second behind Jonathan Bain and really closing here as they had to make way for an LMP1 a little earlier. McMillan maybe a little crossed up on the exit of the Dunlop chicane there. But McMillan fighting to gain a position on where he started. Jonathan Bain trying his best to hold on. He's a position down from where he started on the grid. And it looks like McMillan got a bit of a slowdown there on the exit of the S's, so that battle will calm down for the time being. But the gap is under a second now for the LMP1 lead, and Thomas Heures trying his best to close in on Robert Northway. Looks like David Nichols has come in for his final stop of the night. 4 stops for him, and he makes his way out of pit lane with an 18.7 second splash and dash. Comes out in 6th place in the LMP1 class, does David Nichols, getting up to speed. And Nichols, don't forget, was one of the drivers involved in the big pile-up in the LMP1 class early on. It's good to see that he's made an excellent recovery there. He's up 5 places.
Yep, that is indeed a good recovery drive for him. And we should check back in with our overall leaders because someone got held up at Mulsanne. Here comes Thomas Heures to the outside for Indianapolis. That's a little bit more courageous. Here we are inside, half an hour to go. Make it 25 minutes. There we go. Round the outside, make it inside for Indianapolis proper. 2 hours has been completed, and now it comes a time for the sprint racing to come alive here at Le Mans. Look at these guys both dumping the hybrid out of Arnage here, but look at Heures to be able to deploy so much more, at least. Oh boy, that is a lot more hybrid deployment that he's got access to there. You did mention, of course, earlier on, these two cars, differing hybrid technologies and differing energy allowances around this track does mean that the Porsche in theory... Oh, that's not good traffic there in the middle of the Oh, Porsche curves. I believe that's Chi Sung-Wang there, who's just minding his own business there in his BMW M8, and then more traffic for our prototype boys. The kinetic avatar entry of Matt Chalker. They get through clean, but then look, more hybrid for Heures on the exit of Corvette. Like, it's amazing just how much more hybrid he's got access to, or at least that, or backing it up and using it here in the later parts of the lap. That could come so critical should this racing continue to the end of the race. Is Northway burning up too much of his allowance in the earlier parts of the lap? It kind of feels like it, because here we go. Look at that. They're up the inside through the Dunlop curve, the outside for the chicanes, though.
Oh, they go side by side through the chicane, almost making contact. Northway has to back out there on the exit. A red-hot go at trying to get the race lead back. He has to concentrate on staying within the draft range. Starts from about 1.5 seconds back at full speed. As long as he can stay within a second of Heures, he should be able to get the slipstream. Let's see what the deployment is like here on the exit of Tetra Rouge.
Northway.
Oh yeah, ever so slight there. He just missed out on getting back onto the track before the exit curve, but he stays in the slipstream of Thomas Heures on the way down to the first of our Mulsanne chicanes. This battle is not over.
Oh, certainly it won't be. And, possibly a bit of issues there for a couple of guys. No, bit of auto chat binds being used from a couple of drivers. JM Thomas, one of them. And he's continuing to try and chase down... Oh boy, that battle with Simon Francis, it feels like it's been going on and on and on this race. A couple of times we've checked in on it. Unfortunately, Thomas has had a bit of an incident of his own, making somewhere on the line, but all of a sudden he put in go right, go left, go right in rapid succession in the chat. And well, yeah, if I was a driver who was trying to follow that advice... Oh, he's deep at Arnage.
Very deep.
It's mistakes like those from him that are just going to cost him a chance at properly getting past Francis, who's just continuing to lap cleanly. They may be, unfortunately, a long way off the next car in position, so it's basically a fight between the two of them and those behind. But, well, just you'd think for someone like for J.M. Thomas, he certainly feels maybe he deserves to be further up the field, but mistakes like that when you're not under pressure from behind, just the kind of stuff you can't afford to make as we continue to check in with our race leaders, and that is a huge gap on track for what is actually being told as 7/10. But traffic ahead there for Heures into Indianapolis.
Oh, contact!
Sam Harper is taken out.
Oh no! Championship leader overall, and Heures has given up the lead to Robert Northway as a consequence of that. Here's another view of it, thanks to Virtual Racing Store. Oh, that was such a shame. Heures coming up on Harper, coming into Indianapolis, tried to go for the move, but the GTE has to use a bit more of the track on the way in, and Harper gets bumped off the circuit. Fortunately, I don't think there's too much in the way of damage there for Harper, but goodness gracious, that is a big shame for him. Should still be safe for third. Here's the slow-mo of it. Harper having to use a bit more of the track, and I think Hinsey could have afforded to go a little bit more to the left or even just stay behind Harper for the time being. Oh, man, that is not what you want to see.
It's the intricacies of multi-class racing. Oh, that's...
Oh,
yeah,
no.
we see it now. Mechanical black flag for Sam Harper in the 52 machine. He has to limp that car back to the pits. And you can see here having to absolutely baby it through the Porsche curves. And, fighting with that thing every step of the way. He's been passed now by Alexander Sheridan. Joshua Robertson is coming into the Porsche curve, so he will fall back to at least 5th. And, well, Dwayne Burns is still following Josh Robertson, so it's at least looking like now a 6th place position for Sam Harper after challenging for so long and being on the back bumper, potentially, of what would have been 2nd place here in that GTE class. It's come undone in the dying minutes, thanks to some multi-class drama, which this track and this kind of racing often likes to bring about.
Oh, so Harper's heartbreak coming into the lane. Does he still have his fast repair is the question, and he does, so he shouldn't lose too much time from this pit stop, but that's definitely a podium position lost there for Sam, and he might even, he does lose out to Robertson and Burns as he makes his way into the lane. Oh, man. I can't believe that, man. Like, the fact that these drivers were going so well, as we check out a replay for David Nichols going very deep at Arnage, manages to keep it out of the wall, has to do a 3-point turn to get back onto the circuit. But, man, I wonder now, will Harper be able to hold on to the overall championship lead with now coming out in 6th place in GTE?
Well, I want to see if I can find out about that for us. That'd be interesting if I could figure it out. Well, we'll see what we can do here, if there's any indication as to what's...
Stefan, as you're doing that, Dan, doing your research, big problem for Adrian Stefan, who has retired the car thanks to this incident. Catches the grass on the way into the S's, tries to recover it and just heads straight for the Armco barrier. A very heavy hit, and that car is completely destroyed as a consequence. Look at the amount of right-hand down he has. That car is crabbing something fierce. So, unfortunate end to the night there for Adrian Stefan. Now into the pits, and that, I would presume, that's where he's going to remain. Opposite fortunes, meanwhile, for Blake Neck, who continues to hold on to the lead from Jaden Hopp. He's actually extended that lead. It's now out to about 57 seconds, and Neck is by far the quickest car in the GTE class as things stand. It's been, I'd say, a pretty lonely race for Blake Neck. He hasn't had to do much racing with other cars of his class, but once again, he is indeed showing his talents. I was teammates with Blake Neck for a while, so I know how good of a driver he is, and he's certainly showing his talents there as Mulder and Otto continue to fight here over 9th place. It's still been a really good race for Ryan Mulder, despite the few mistakes that we have seen him make, but now Phil Otto is closing in on him.
Yes, that will be important, of course. These two guys getting ready to get into the fight here for these last couple of minutes of racing. Obviously, Ryan Mulder would rather be up fighting Jonathan Bain like he had been earlier on in this race, but yeah, unfortunately, not being the ending to this race that he would like. So, well, it's now about holding on to that 9th place position and try and keep Phil Otto behind, but that will be a task with no slipstream to work with here as they make their way down into the 2nd of the Mulsanne chicanes. And Otto, nice and patient here, but that's very wide from Mulder through the chicane. That should be a slow... Oh, no, he might get away with that one there, but certainly showing himself a little bit vulnerable there through pressure as Otto goes up the inside as we inch our way down towards the Mulsanne turn. He's going to claim the right to the inside line here. And you can see as they start getting further along the straight, just that Porsche will inch along as it picks up speed, and Mulder backs out here. He's not going to fight that one into Mulsanne, but what he can do is try and get a better run through the turn here and pressure back up into Indianapolis here as he gets a good drive off the turn here. Can he get the slipstream now to make full advantage of it as they continue this race? And looks like he's closing in It's going to be a matter of can he get alongside? Oh, up and over the curb there, and he's alongside now, but does the Porsche have anything left for it in a straight line at the top end?
Coming into Indianapolis, this is going to be difficult here. Mulder is going to be ahead when they get to the turn-in point, and yeah, it looks like Otto just yielding there at the entry. It is only 15 minutes to go in this race. Neither driver wants a big incident to happen this late. They've held on to some fantastic positions here, so if they are going to race each other, they just want to make it nice and clean and take it one step at a time. So Mulder will continue to hold on to 9th place in the GTE class. Meanwhile, Burns and Robertson, as Burns is let by one of his Kinetic Avatar teammates in the GTE. Robertson has been having a fantastic race, hasn't he? He is the driver with the most positions gained in the GTE class, and though we did see him suffer a spin earlier, I think it's been a fantastic drive from the Ferrari driver, holding on to a top 4 position and having a great fight with Dwayne Burns.
Very true indeed there. And, well, Robertson is the top-placed sportsman driver in our GTE field. Obviously there he's got those cars behind, and Dwayne Burns is the car behind, pardon me, who can pressure him here for that top, well, she's actually 4th place, I should say, in class there. The LMP1 of Julian Mookie there, just getting me a little bit crisscrossed, but that says a lot about how far up the road Blake Neck is from everyone else. 58-second gap to Jaden Hopp still. And, yeah, well, Robertson, unfortunately, a good 13 seconds, I'm told. Well, this is what I can see behind the next driver up the road, which is Alexander Sheridan. And with Dwayne Burns right behind him here, looking to scrap. You can see there, Burns has opted to fix up his car, but so did Robertson. So these two guys ready to go at it with their cars, hopefully, at full performance for this final phase of the race. And, well, they've been pretty locked together in the middle phase with damage. Looks like that isn't going to change now that their cars are fixed up. But here comes Burns with the slipstream down in the Mulsanne corner. Robertson takes the racing line in. He keeps the door open. Burns is going to have to get there late under brakes, though, here, Reese. But Robertson is playing that one nice and smart. Lets him go without too much fuss. Try and get a good drive off the turn and stay with him to Indianapolis. If they've got LMP driver coming through. And, in fact, that might just be... No, it's David Nichols, pardon me. 6th place driver there in that LMP1 car.
Fun fact, Robertson is the only Ferrari in the field. Just gone through and checked through all of our GTE runners as he tries once again to make a move on Dwayne Burns, but Burns covers it. Robertson on the outside into Indianapolis. Oh, he's going to commit to the move. Oh, almost gets into the back of Burns there. Robertson wants this 4th place back, flying the flag for the prancing horse. Oh, this is a great battle. I love this. And unfortunately for Robertson, crossed up on the way into Arnage and loses that essential small gap to Dwayne Burns. But still, I think a very sterling drive from the only Ferrari 488 in the field.
Yeah, there's a good point to make there, actually, despite the fact that we do have all of our GTE class cars represented here this evening. Certainly, the Porsche 911 RSR is far and away the field favourite here tonight. Much like how in LMP1, the Porsche 919 is certainly more preferred, it would seem, than the Audi R18. But, well, it's an Audi that leads this race still here as we continue to watch Mulder and Otto go at it here as they make their way up from the Mulsanne corner towards Indianapolis. They've got the race leader coming up behind them. That's Robert Northway in the background, a shot there. So he will arrive just on the exit of Indianapolis, or perhaps Arnage even, which sounds like a pretty good timing for all of these guys involved here. These GT cars can have their battle continue after the turn. And Northway here, no, Northway's actually going to catch them here in between. Oh, no. Otto there got off the racing line. That doesn't quite help, generally speaking. Usually good practice to stay on the racing line. Let the other guy do the work to get around you there. But out of Arnage, it has meant that the gap opens up to 2 seconds there, race between them, but they'll carry on unaffected otherwise.
All right, well, No battles underneath a second between cars in the field now as the race is about to enter its final 10 minutes. That's the gap for the lead. 5.5 seconds between, or 6.5 seconds rather, on our local timing between Northway and Heures. And Heures having to make his way past one of the Kinetic Avatar Porsches in the middle of the Porsche curves. Well, he manages to get it done very nicely. And up against one of the BMWs, I think that's Mulder that he just went by. And, well, I don't think Mulder's too happy with that one. Maybe a little bit squeezed on the exit, but I think Heures had every right to try and go for the move there. Either way, as they come up to the start-finish line, 10 minutes to go now in the 2 hours and 45 minutes in the French countryside. The track is rapidly darkening, and the track temperature is hovering at around 22 degrees Celsius. It's a bit far away from what they call happy hour at the real-life Le Mans 24 hour. The hour just before the dawn, when the track is at its coolest. Jesus, Mary, Joseph, Abraham and Isaac, Robert Northway nearly making things difficult for him there, catching the grass on the way into Tetra Rouge. Let's have another look at that. Goodness gracious. Northway, I mean, he's got a nice stable gap over Thomas Heures, but he doesn't need to do stuff like that. Goodness, he had to make a bit of correction on the way in. Fortunately, the amount of downforce these LMP1 cars produce means that something like that isn't too much of a problem.
Yeah, well, looks like almost a copy-paste of what we saw from Thomas Heures not that long ago. And, well, it does mean that at this stage here, impressively, despite all of that, his gap is still holding at around 7 seconds, depending on who you check in with. So, looking like for now that Northway has got things under control here as the darkness falls fairly properly here. And we now begin to rely a lot more on, oh goodness, sorry, pardon me. Rely more is what I was going to try and say on the headlights and what little street lighting we have here around this circuit. So, 8 minutes on the clock at the Mulsanne turn, around halfway into the lap here for these guys. So, looking around just over under 7 minutes to go. So, probably 2 laps at the line, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe squeeze a third in here, Reese. We'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Yeah, we will have to wait and see. So Northway makes his way on the run down to one of the Kinetic Avatar Porsches up ahead of him. Makes good room for Northway, does Dave Trevethan. Actually, I apologise if I've gotten the team name wrong there. Unclear who Dave Trevethan is with. But now we're looking at Connor Brown and J.M. Thomas once again fighting for 9th and 10th in the LMP1 class. They've fallen a lap down on the top 6 in the LMP1 class. But I got to say, Connor Brown, he's had a pretty successful race so far, up 4 places from where he started. And given we're going to a virtual racing school replay, probably something has gone wrong once again for Julian Mookie. And he's lost it at the second of the Mulsanne chicanes. Fortunately, kept it out of the tyre barriers.
Yeah, certainly not the way he'd want his race to carry on here. As we check back in with Phil Otto and Ryan Mulder, yes, and more importantly, Otto has finally gotten through on Mulder here. These sportsman drivers continuing to duke it out for the 3rd place position in class amongst the GTE drivers, but that's Mulder thinking around the outside on entry to the Porsche curves, and Otto's actually giving him the respect to take the spot back. So, oh boy, that's the kind of thing I wouldn't have thought I'd be seeing when it came to drivers giving up the, well, fighting and not overdriving it at that stage there. But that's well done there from Mulder. Good respect from Otto, but he's a little crossed up through Corvette curves there. It's going to give Otto a chance to stay right on his rear bumper as they make their way to cross end this lap here and start their penultimate one. And of course, I was busy checking and didn't see where we were, but looking at the timer now on screen in our race leaders on the Mulsanne, we are going to get another
2 laps, I think.
Yeah, this lap and 2 more maybe. I think we might just squeeze in more. So yeah, that's our estimate. That's our belief there. So going to be a 45 lap race for your LMP1 cars. And well, Northway now just dealing with a pile of traffic here. but that just means a free bit of slipstream down this second part of the Mulsanne for him, and looks like he'll just clear it all before the braking zone for the second chicane. He does indeed.
That he does. Hard on the brakes goes Robert Northway past Matt Chalker. The LMP1 that he just passed was Joshua Thomas there, putting him another lap down. And now, number 51, Connor Brown, trying to chase down JM Thomas. 3.3 seconds now is the gap. It's extending just a little bit, but there's still potential here. If Thomas runs into some GTE traffic in the wrong place, Brown is going to be right there to take advantage as he dives up the inside of one of our GTE Porsches there, the number 76 of Matt Chalker, and getting ever closer to JM Thomas. They are now in the same frame. There is Thomas in the Audi, and of course the Porsche. There is, oh wow, okay, righto. That was Thomas Heures. Something's gone wrong there for Thomas Heures. What on earth happened? Hinsey was there on the straight. Did he get a slowdown, I wonder? Because, oh no, actually, yeah, he's on his hybrid. He's trying his best to make his way past. Oh my goodness, what a save that was for Thomas Heures. But I think he might not be too happy with Connor Brown for that one. We're staying on the replay because something further has gone on here for James Catchpole. And that's coming down the on the way into the Mulsanne corner. Is Catchpole overshot here? No, he's lost the rear on the way in.
Yeah, another case of the rear locking there for another LMP1 car at the Mulsanne turn, but goodness me. Yeah, talk about a Code Brown moment there for one of our race leaders there. And, well, not a good look there for Connor Brown there with the car beside you flashing the headlights as they came up to you, which you would think is a fairly clear indication perhaps that just to be aware of things there. But, well, Heures has survived at least. Only thing is he's now 8 seconds off the race leaders. Northway heads up into the Dunlop chicane. Bit of a bobble there over the curbs for our race leader, but oh, and a GT car that he's just passed has spun on the chicane exit, so that's not too great. Where is that spun car? Chi Sung Wang off track, thankfully, but that's certainly not what the 073 would like to see. He is now the last driver running on track, and well, after a case of what could have been for him, he'll not be too happy with his result, I dare suspect. But, well, got to get to the end first before you can talk about the result. And Corwitt quits as, oh boy, Julian Mookie, another mechanical black flag, and he's limping that car back to the pits again.
Man, what might have been for Julian Mookie? It did not get off to a good start for him, as it looks like that's Daniel Stevens back in the pit lane in the dying minutes of the race, so he wasn't able to stretch out that final fuel tank, pitting one lap earlier than everyone else right at the first pit stop, unfortunately setting him on a path to disaster. He stands a chance potentially of losing a podium position to Gavin Barber.
Well, he's now cleared his box, so he's on his way again, but he's exiting the lane now, so he will hang on just, but Gavin Barber is going to be within half a chance at getting up to him here. They will have one more, well, pardon me, they've got two laps to go here, these guys. That's how far back from the race lead they are. And, well, this certainly could be important for these guys. But, of course, both from the middle finger racing squad, apologies there as we watch again here for Julian Mookie, who's making his way around. But more importantly, there's your GTE class leader, Blake Neck, has got the gap up again to over a minute and 12 seconds. He's absolutely been barnstorming this final stint in the 3-minute 47s. He's about 2 to 3 seconds a lap faster than anyone else in GTE tonight. He has absolutely been untouchable and on fire, apart from one tiny moment involving some LMP1s and some audacious passing attempts that he was able to avoid without too much drama and only just a bit of a lost time there, which he clearly wasn't that big of a deal for him tonight, it seems.
Yeah, evidently. Looks like Connor Brown has made his way past JM Thomas there, coming into Indianapolis. This is how it happened, and was it a mistake for Thomas, or just a case of big slipstream plus more hybrid deployment for Brown? Wow, that was a big loss of straight line speed there for JM Thomas. I'm wondering what the case was there. Either way, we're going to stay on this replay because something went on between these two. Brown, not that good of an exit out of Indianapolis, has to let Thomas back by at Arnage.
Yep, and then a little wide through Arnage for Thomas. Brown gives him a mile of space, and in fact, Brown's back through at the Porsche curves there. So back and forth and back again. Looks like these two aren't done just yet with fighting over their spot here on track as your race leader heads across the line there to begin the final lap of the Majors 2.4 here from the virtual French countryside. And these guys now will begin their final lap as well here. Hines is still second place, but the gap is 7 seconds. It's going to take multiple slowdowns and dramas for them, so we best keep our eyes on this fight here. It is for 9th place in LMP1, but it's the best one I think we're going to have for the next little bit here. So eyes forward as they make their way into the Dunlop chicane. That's a corner cut there for Thomas potentially. No, he gets away with that one. Brown was absolutely wide of the apex there, and, well, I just thought that Thomas took too much of it, but apparently not. So through the end of the S as we go. Brown not as confident by a long shot, but Thomas needs to back it up here and set up the run through Tetra Rouge. And look how much more confidence he has in himself and his car here as they begin the run down this long straightaway.
Oh, is that a slowdown there for JM Thomas? He's lost all that time. It looks like he's good. It seems that Connor Brown deployed a little more.
It's damage.
Oh no! Yes, it is damage for JM Thomas.
Thomas drove over the curbs at the turn 1 chicane, and I bet you that it's absolutely destroyed the floor of that Audi R18. There's a tiny bit of visible damage on the right side of the vehicle. There's another car down lane. Gavin Barber again. But Gavin Barber follows him in, Reese.
Oh no! What has gone on for the Middle Finger Racing squad? Shane Bowen is going to get both of them here and get into 3rd place as he starts his final lap.
I'm amazed. Another 4.4 second splash, and no, pardon me. Stevens hasn't yet made it to his box in the lane, but oh wow, that's rather incredible there for the car that started 2nd place. Another 4 second splash, and away he goes. Quite shocking to make that kind of a miscalculation on the timer there for him, and 5 seconds stationary for Gavin Barber to make sure he gets home as our race leader is already heading up to Indianapolis. The spread for these guys obviously is seems pretty insane, but, well, that's endurance racing. Another car down to the lane. That's Jonathan Bain, another middle finger car that's 1 lap short on fuel.
That's a shame there. Looks like Bain, he might just lose out to Nick McMillan depending on the gap between those two.
He does.
Yep, so McMillan moves into the top 10 in the GTE class, but hopefully, with nothing else happening on the final lap of this race, we can bring home our potential race winner here in Robert Northway. There is no traffic ahead of him from what I can see. And it's a nice clear run. Actually, no, there is going to be one Ford GTE, and I'm wondering, is that Blake Neck he's coming up to lap potentially? No, it is not. It's another one of the Fords making their way to the final couple of chicanes, but a very commanding performance from Robert Northway. Negotiated the pit stops, negotiated the traffic, and put down some blazing pace. He's going to cross the line and take the win here in the Majors 2.4. A fantastic performance indeed. Coming across the line in 2nd is going to be Thomas Hines. He's going to think what might have been, and it looks like he's pulling it over right after the finish. He is not happy with how things went for him in that final stint. Blake Neck still has quite a bit of this lap to go here, but if it would take a miracle for him to lose the GTE lead at this stage. It's still on here between Nichols and Stevens for 4th and 5th, and Nichols finding himself in a potential P4 here with Stevens' late double pit stop. Very unfortunate there for Daniel, who was in contention for the lead very early on.
Yep, but we'll have to keep our eyes on it. That looks like, though, Stevens has been able to put the power down there with the hybrid system out of Mulsanne. And, well, down to Indianapolis they will come. Also still waiting, like, shockingly on Shane Bowen to bring it across the line. And, well, here we go. So, Nichols out of Indianapolis, following Stevens through Arnage. All pretty even Stevens here at about a second between the two of them. So, Not much left of the circuit to go here. It looks like it's going to take a bit of a miracle here to change things up. Gap of around 1 second or 1.3 even. Looks like Stevens is able to really deploy a lot of his hybrid here in this final couple of corners. And then through the Porsche curves we go. Nichols cranking on the steering lock to really push the car through here. Stevens looks pretty comfortable here. A little wide of the preferred line. Run through Corvette. That's very wide of the line through Corvette. Slow down for Stevens here. This could change things. He's got a second in hand, but he's got to clear that slowdown here through the Ford chicanes, Reese.
No, here we go. Nichols trying to round him up. Stevens is slow. Nichols almost finds a way past, but I think Stevens has cleared it, and he's only just going to hold on for 4th place here. Oh, very close there at the final run. So now Blake Neck coming into the Porsche curves, into Indianapolis for the final time. He was so far ahead of his fellow GTE competitors that the LMP1 field lapped up to 2nd place in GTE, but by the time they took the finish, that means that Neck is going to win his class by a whole lap. And if that doesn't say dominant, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I just like his pace consistency tonight in GTE has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, just looking at it here, there's only been a couple of moments where he dipped out of a 347 or a 348. There's been some ventures also down into the 346s. And yeah, apart from like one slightly scruffy lap in the early phase, which I think looks to be around the first time that the traffic or the LMP cars came through as traffic, well, how about that? This man's been absolutely on fire. Fastest lap is his, a 346.7. His personal best lap in this race trounces everyone's to the tune of 2 seconds, Reese. 2 full seconds in a single lap under race conditions around here. I mean, yeah, completely insane. And there you are, to cap it off, gets himself 39 laps on the board to win both the GTE class and the Pro class here in that subdivision tonight. And that means we can now finally take a look at your race results here from the Majors 2.4. Your top 10 tonight, all LMP1 cars, but it's Robert Northway to take that outright win along with the Pro Class win. 6.5 seconds separates him from Thomas Hinz at the line. Shane Bowen there, a quiet 3rd place in the end of it all, but, well, should have been 4th or 5th, but gets the fuel strategy right when it matters most, Reese. And Daniel Stevens hangs on to P4 there, but certainly will be ruining what should have been with a double pit stop disaster to wrap that one up there. David Nichols, our lead sportsman entrant in the LMP1 class tonight, rounds himself out with P5 ahead of Gavin Barber as another one of our pros in 6th, and then our sportsman drivers of Adam Preston, Simon Francis, and Connor Brown 1, 1, and 2 laps down respectively. And then James Thomas, well, a race that he would have thought could have gone better, 2 laps down on the leaders for 10th place in class tonight.
Adrian Stefan managed to get back out onto the track, comes home in 11th place. Chaston Teets in 12th. Then it's Catchpole and Hayden Mcchesney in 14th. Joshua in the sportsman class. Blake Neck manages to take the win by a full lap over Jaden Hopp and Alexander Sheridan. Dwayne Burns coming home a very strong P4 there, holding off Joshua Robertson at the final go. Sam Harper, well, he could have been 3rd, but for contact with Thomas Hinz at Indianapolis to round out the top 20 finishes overall.
21st place and 7th in GTE goes to Dave Trevethan, and then Ryan Mulder gets back ahead of Phil Otto and hangs on to 8th place. 1.6 seconds the gap at the line between those two guys for 22nd and 23rd. And then Nick McMillan back there in 24th place. And then Jonathan Bean, one of our Pro Class cars, who looks a little bit out of place there, you might think, amongst all the sportsman entries there. Jake Fox, a bit of a up and down night for him in the 08 machine. And then Julian Mookie, our lone LMP1 car that, well, he soldiered on most of this race, but that certainly was one that he would rather forget, I think, after, well, the number of times that car ended up with serious damage. But moving on, Stuart Elder, 28th place, and next of our GT cars ahead of Matt Chalker and Costa Karaklajic to round out our top 30. Chi-Sung Wang, 31st, another driver who would say what could have been, I dare say, for him. 32nd to Corey Horder, the last of our GT cars, and then 33rd place, Dean Mole, also a GT car, but 33rd place and our one retirement from this evening. Unfortunately, after winning the Indy 500 as our last majors event, it's gone quite the other way for him here tonight in the international region.
Yeah, indeed. Poor Dean Moll, he was out very early on in his Corvette, but we can go to our driver interviews and, of course, open the floor, and a big round of applause for Robert Northway, who comes home with victory here in the Le Mans 2.4 after starting on pole. Robert, that race went incredibly well for you, but you had one heck of a battle with Thomas Hinz all throughout.
Oh, that was the best part of the whole race. Forget the win, that battle was just a joy. It was just so much fun. It's a shame it ended the way it did.
Yeah, indeed. We certainly agree with that. So what do you think was the key to winning the battle versus Thomas Hinz? Because traffic definitely played its part, but you also caught up to him in the pit cycle as well.
Yeah, I think the big key was the fact that everyone had to do a 12-lap stint during the race, and I decided from the start I'd do that on the first stint, get it out of the way. I think that's what made the difference, because he pulled away in the first stint and then I caught him back up quite comfortably in the second when he was saving.
Well, either way, that definitely brings you home with a good haul of points here. Definitely keeps the championship interesting because of Thomas Hinz's contact with Sam Harper and costing Sam a good deal of points himself. So I think this has really tightened up the championship going into the next round. Things are looking very spicy.
Yeah, it's looking very tight. By my guesstimation, we should be almost even on points.
Indeed, just about even. So, the floor is yours, Robert Northway. Anyone you'd like to thank for your brilliant victory tonight?
First off, Thomas Hinz for pushing me the whole way in the brilliant battle. The Satellite Racing team for all the help with setup and working towards tonight's race as well. And just everyone who's helped out. And the Kiwi Sim Racing boys have also been good as well.
That they have. That's Robert Northway there, taking victory here in the LMP1 class. Next up is second place on the road here. Thomas Hinz stood by with Dan Yeaman.
Thank you there, Reece. And, well, Thomas, a good race from you tonight, and, had a good pace in the first stint there, but just chatting with Robert Northway, he was talking about the strategy requiring a 12-lap stint, and then back and forth between you two guys, unfortunately not quite enough to stay with him there in the final stint.
That was all me. It was good fun, awesome fun, back and forth with Rob. As he said, the strat was there. I kind of realised that after that first stint, needing to go the one extra. So the second one I sort of tried to save the extra lap, which is made it interesting, trying to keep Rob behind and keep boost. It was really hard trying to keep the boost there while you're trying to fuel save, because obviously you can't, you're not braking as much, so you're not harvesting as much. So that was interesting, but kept it thereabouts, and then obviously, man, the last couple I could just go full bore, and by the looks of it, I might not need to save that one. The strategy, my fuel thing kind of changed on me there a little bit, but anyway. Then went for it after that and chased him down, and got the move done, and then just a dumb move from me trying to get past Sam there in Indianapolis and just misjudged it. And huge apologies to Sam. That's just super poor form from me, but super poor form from me. So I hope he doesn't lose the championship because of that, because that would make me feel eternally like not good. But anyway, huge apologies to Sam. That was just terrible for me. Obviously after that kind of nullified any chance of fighting Rob. So tried to keep pushing, but Rob just kept it. I think the Addy was super strong at the stints, so that was kind of gold once he was down the road there.
Yeah, it did look, obviously, there's a bit of back and forth between you two. Also, I think you touched there on sort of the hybrid deployment a little bit there with respect to your fuel saving. It was quite fascinating to watch. It looked like you guys had quite different deployment locations around the lap, and so it made for a good watch here up here in the commentary box. I guess when it comes to a track like Le Mans here with the way you have to manage the deployment of the hybrid system, I guess, how much are you doing it manually? Because I know with these cars you can let the car automatically calculate it and try and figure it out. Do you take full control of that hybrid system yourself, or did you let the game and the car take care of that for you tonight?
It's because I haven't touched on the P1, my god, for a long time. And I really haven't driven it much. Period. Really, I drove it a bit when it was released, and I've done the odd race here and there. But the last race I did in this thing was probably over a year or more ago. But I figured with Blake in GT, and I thought there was going to be some DPR guys that looked like they were going to race GT. They didn't, so didn't end up mattering. But made an interesting race fighting Robin and Fon. But yeah, no, with the deployment, I actually, when I was, what was I? It was during the pre-qual. I was doing the outlap. I didn't use any boost, and I didn't even know that it was automatically doing it to a point. But yeah, it was to a point. It was automatically doing a little bit, but then I was manually adding on top of that. There was a lovely guide. I mean, again, none of this is through my knowledge really. I just went off. Craig's Setup Shop had from like last year, I think they had a guide for Le Mans for where the percentages you want in the Audi and the Porsche. So I just kind of followed that. For the Porsche, and it seemed to work quite well. And yeah, it was interesting to see that, yeah, Rob was at different points to me. I get the feeling, that was obviously down to the Audi because it doesn't harvest down the straights, whereas the Porsche does. So I think with that, he had to use a few different points, and it seemed to work. I mean, his post was great. It just was, it was interesting for me too, seeing, he'd come back at some points and I'd come back at other points. But yeah, it was, probably mostly manual. But yeah, it was certainly a experience trying to relearn these cars for this and everything.
Yeah, it is one of the more technically challenging vehicles on the iRacing platform, that's for sure. Well, yeah, unfortunately we missed you at the Indy 500. You were a little concerned about how that would play out then for the Pro Championship, but another good result here tonight for you. I think that means, well, don't count you out just yet, but I guess it's still a pretty lengthy season here for the majors, so I guess you can never say never to, well, going either way, I guess, at this stage.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm not. No, I feel like now, I'll feel terrible. I'd feel awful if I wouldn't now after torpedoing Sam now. But yeah, we'll see. It is interesting because I mean, if Blake, shows first rounds, he'll be right in it, obviously, and Rob's pace is really good this year. He's really come leaps and bounds and improved a huge amount. So he's a big threat, and obviously Sam's just super consistent. Just bangs in solid results every race. So we'll see. I don't know. I think I'm an outside chance. I think those three are more in the fight because once we get to that dirt round, that's why I didn't want to miss the 500. Why I'm still salty about it, and I will be for a while because that I know I'm going to be not good on dirt oval because I just do not do any of that, and I'm not good on dirt oval, so that's not going to go well. So that's probably going to cost me points. So I was hoping to use that as my drop round, but obviously missing the 500 kind of screwed that plan. So we'll see. I think it's those three are the main ones, but if I can get a podium here or there and or get a win, which I could perhaps not if I didn't screw it maybe, but if I can get a win maybe at some point and just nip some podiums, that'd be good too.
Yes, indeed. Well, we'll have to wait and see how things play out for you then in that case. We'll let you go, man. Who do you want to thank tonight for helping you get your result done here?
Just the usuals, I suppose. HR for their support as always, and SRC as well. It was good to run the livery on this thing. We made these liveries a long time ago for the LMP1 for SRC. I think it's a bit out of date now. Actually, there's one or two sponsors on there that I don't know if we really have anymore, and there's one or two that aren't there that we have now. But either way, still looks fantastic, and it was great to get to run a paint on a car that I don't really drive at all. So big thanks to them, and big thanks to Majors as well for putting it on as always, and everyone else. Everyone was great in that race. So awesome from everybody, and Majors for as always running a great show, and yeah, big thanks to you guys for the broadcast. I'm sure doing a great job with it as always.
Thank you very much there. Thomas in second place in LMP1. And well, now a chance to quickly chat with our GTE race winner. A very dominant result for Blake Neck, and Rhys Garner is standing by to chat with him.
Yeah, well, Blake, qualifying throughout the week didn't quite go your way, but certainly it seems you had a very good race car under you. I do remember from past experience, you do like that Ford GTE, and it certainly played to your strengths here tonight.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Reece. Yeah, the Ford GT is one of my favourite cars to drive, and over the years done plenty of laps around it in the car around Le Mans, so it definitely did well for tonight.
Certainly, it seemed like you weren't under much threat there in terms of race pace. How did the car feel for you coming into the race? Because certainly seemed like, aside from a little run-in with an LMP1 at one of the chicanes, you were pretty much untroubled, barely any mistakes at all.
Yeah, the car felt really good. The only real bad thing about the car was the exit of the chicanes. Get a little bit sideways, but apart from that, the car was almost perfect. Yeah, that almost incident with the LMP1 at the first chicane, I just decided the best idea was to avoid it as best as I can and go straight through the runoff area and come out with a clean car.
It's looking like it's going to be a four-way fight for the title at this stage between you, Harper, Northway and Heures, with a unfortunate result for Harper at the end. So things are set up really good for the World 600 in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, it's getting close to the top. Unfortunately, I've already used some of my drop rounds, as I've missed 2 rounds and then Indy didn't go my way. So I'm on the back foot a little bit, but hopefully I can string a few results like this and end up in the top step.
I'll certainly hope so too, Blake. Anyone you'd like to thank before we let you go for your dominant victory tonight?
Just like to thank the guys at TriStar Racing and Dane Warren for making an unbelievable livery for this Ford GT.
Certainly was an unbelievable livery. Very nice looking car out there tonight. That was Blake Nick there. 1 lap was the gap for him at the end of the race. Finally, we've got second place in GTE. A very nice run for Jayden Hopp, and Dan's going to talk about it with him.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Reese. Well done there on second place, Jayden. Unfortunately, Blake, just a class of his own, it seemed, tonight. But I guess, yeah, from your perspective, when you sort of, you're in your own sort of pace there, towards that later part of the race at least, I guess how does that sort of, do you change the way you're driving when it comes to sort of managing your pace, knowing that there's someone that you're not likely to catch there?
Mostly just being as consistent and mistake-free as possible and trying to hold off as best as possible.
Yeah, it's a good point to make there indeed. I mean, and 25 seconds back behind you to Alexander was at third place in class tonight. You did a really good job there, obviously, just to get out in front and manage things there for yourself. I guess thinking back to the start of the race, it seemed like things were a little bit crazy amongst both the LMPs and the GT cars. How was it sort of like dealing with the traffic in the opening phases of the race, where it felt like everyone was sort of still treating it a bit like a sprint race at times, despite the fact that we did over 2 hours of racing here tonight?
Yeah, it was pretty chaotic. The first time being in a GTE against LP1s, but I think it worked out better than I was expecting.
I think absolutely, yeah, to say that, if first time out in the lower car class, certainly a good result to walk away with tonight. Well, and a good result here for the road side of things. I guess looking forward to the rest of the majors calendar. Any sort of, we've got the World 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway up next. Any thoughts about that one early on before we get to that one hit there?
I think that one will go all right. I'm usually pretty good in those types of cars, so we'll have to wait and see, really.
Well, then, look forward to seeing what you can do then. Before we let you go, Jayden, who do you want to thank tonight for your result?
Just the majors for putting on a pretty good league, and you guys for putting on a good broadcast.
Thank you very much there. Jayden Hopp, second place in GTE and Pro Class amongst GTE drivers tonight. Well, Reese, that's going to wrap up the action from Virtual France this evening. And as we suggested just there, talking with some of those drivers, the next round of the major series is the World 600. 400 laps, 600 miles of racing, the 1987 NASCAR vehicles out on display for you for that one. That's going to be a wild night of racing, I dare say, a long race for us to cover up here in the commentary box, and also a long night behind the wheel, because those cars are certainly going to be a handful around a 1.5 mile high-speed oval like Charlotte.
That they will. You'll be able to catch that on the 25th of June 2022. Hopefully you'll be able to join us for that, and we certainly hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast here. Once again, we're supporting Fight Colorectal Cancer, and you can head on to fightcolorectalcancer.org to lend your support to that charity. A big thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks very much to the Majors Series and the Majors Garage for putting this whole event on. Certainly a fantastic race here in the international region. I'm Reese Gardner, Dan Yeaman alongside me in the comms box, and Jay Kennedy on production. We're SimSpeed TV. This has been the Majors Series. We will see you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's going in the outside. Both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top. Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?